Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. It is Tuesday, September 2nd, and we are live officially from the new studio. Thank you, everybody, for being here. If you were on the stream last night, we did a bit of a reveal of the new studio, a little bit of a tour. This isn't the final form, still stuff I want to change, certain things that we want to put in different places, but did spend all weekend getting the bricks into place as they needed to be into place, given we took the bricks to the new apartment. And we're here. We are officially live. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, folks. There is a ton going on in the pre-markets. Obviously, if you've looked at your portfolios over the past, call it, 2 hours, it has been ugly. The S&P 500 is down 1%. It's the most anticipated bearish September that I think we've all been anticipating for the past couple of weeks now. But it is officially here. S&P 500 right there, 637. That's down 1.13%. The S&P is down about $7 in the pre-market. Hoodie, 55 cents from going below 100. That's down 3%. Palantir, that's down $6, 150 versus 157 last night. Tesla, some ugly headlines for Tesla in its India debut. They sold 600 cars in the first 4 weeks, which is just a bit underwhelming. That stock's down about 2.2%. Nvidia below 170, AMD below 160, SoFi below 25, Grab back in the 490s, Google below 210. I mean, it's kind of a full-on stock market sell-off in the pre-markets. We're going to see in the next 40 minutes what happens when the actual market opens and we start to get more trading volumes. But as of now, it's ugly. And it's ugly, but it's also not ugly that I think it should be too painful. Obviously, it's painful to see some of that red, but it's also something that I think all of us expected, all of us knew was inevitable, just based on the whole historical precedent that we've been covering for the past couple weeks. And it's here. It is officially here. And so not fun to see. We're going to get through it together as a community over the next 30 days and see how this ends up playing out. I have a lot of stats in regards to September, so we'll talk about that along with some of the other macro headlines. But this week's actually going to be really important because we get non-farm payrolls on Friday. And non-farm payrolls on Friday, I mean, last time we got them, we had a 250,000 job decline, which caused Trump to fire the head of the BLS because he did not believe those job numbers. I don't even know exactly what the new BLS commissioner is going to say on Friday when we get those new job reports. But there's a lot that we have to look at. There's a lot that we have to look at. So today we actually get ISM data, which is really important in the context of what's going to be happening for the contraction or expansion of the economy. We get JOLTS tomorrow. That's going to be important, because we're going to see if the labor market data is consistent with the fact that we don't have as many jobs available. Also, the initial jobs claims last week were actually really good. It came in at 229, lower than expected. So, non-farm payrolls is going to be a mixed bag in terms of it's a forward-looking indicator and how bad do they suggest the job market is in the country. We're going to see, but that'll be important on Friday. Then we get non-farm employment data on Thursday, initial jobs claims on Thursday, and then the full-on August jobs report on Friday. The labor market will be taking up the majority of the headlines this week, and we're going to see what ends up happening from there. So I think the overall argument right here is that I believe, based on corporate earnings, which is realistically the most important thing that stocks care about in regards to getting a multiple on, the multiple that the market is willing to pay for these companies, it's based on their earnings. And so far, the earnings over the past basically 8 months, realistically, 2.5 years since this AI bull run started, when ChatGPT launched in November 2022. But realistically, over the past 2 quarters, we've had phenomenal earnings. And I don't think anyone can deny that, even if you're bearish on the overall market. Does Q3 continue that trend? Because if it does, this is a buying opportunity. I mean, I know it's cliche, but it's a buy the dip. If Robinhood crushes Q3, which based on some of the August data, we're going to get the August metrics in another week. I think they will crush Q3, even if September sucks for them. Does this thing really deserve to go back to 70, 60? But probably not, right? So if it gets into the low 80s, high 90s, I mean, I would be a dip buyer. I want to see how bad does the market take it. The Nvidia, right? They just crushed earnings. They're projected to do theoretically $8 of EPS if they get China revenue back. Now, that's a big if, but nonetheless, based on Jensen working with Trump, they should be getting that China revenue back. That means they're trading at under 22 times earnings for revenues in 2027, which is ridiculously cheap for Nvidia. I mean, for a size of that company, for the quality of that company, paying 22 times is nothing. So I think the most exciting thing about Q3 is going to be, do we have the earnings momentum that we've been seeing over the past 2 quarters to withstand the macro ugliness, which is going to be ugly. Because if we get bad jobs data in the labor market and we get a Fed that potentially is cutting rates into 3% inflation, which is why I think gold and silver are at all-time highs. We'll talk a lot about gold today as well. Then I think companies should still be priced attractive enough for people to buy the dip on them, especially if the dip gets stupid, right? Like if NVIDIA gets back down to 150, Hood gets back to 80, Palantir gets like 120, like SoFi gets to like 19, 18. I mean, these are just not realistic prices based on the earnings projections that I think for those companies they should trade at. And I think a lot of people would get excited to take advantage of that dip. S&P 500 right there, 637.92. That's down about 1.1%. Again, NVIDIA just below 170. Google right here, 208. Google did hit all-time highs on Friday. MicroStrategy, this one's been in the gutter. They bought 4,000 more Bitcoin today, so we'll talk about that. But MicroStrategy as well, 0.44%. Bitcoin and Ethereum. Now, ironically, Bitcoin was breaking out a little bit last night. It's down again today in the pre-markets, but it was at 110 last night as gold was hitting all-time highs. Ethereum's at about 42.50, 42.80 on Ethereum. That one is also down about 1.8%. So look, I think this is one of those months before we get into all the news where you have to ask yourself, do you believe in the bull market? Do you believe in it? And buying some puts, selling some calls, hedging a little bit, that's not believing in the bull market. That's just saying, hey, I want to hedge my position going into a September that could be ugly. But if you believe in the bull market and you really get attractive opportunities, you buy the dip. You could also believe in the bull market and say, I don't need to buy the dip because I bought all of the dip in April, and that dip was way better than whatever September is going to give us, if September even gives us any meaningful type of a dip. And so I'm chilling. I'm relaxing. I really don't need to look at my portfolio. I'll wait till things clear up a little bit, and then we'll go from there. But is this a month where you sell everything and get the hell out because the rest of the year is going to be ugly and erase all the gains that we've had just based on earnings alone? I think it's hard to make that argument. It's just hard. But nonetheless, we're going to see what happens in September. Yes, I know there's a little bit of an echo. I'm working on fixing that. I'm sorry about that. Last night I was listening to it. At some parts it was good. Last night, some parts it was bad, but we're like getting the foam on these walls over the next couple of days. So hopefully by next week, all that stuff will be fixed out. But I'm not using an echo. It's just the room being a little too big for some of this stuff. Last night, the echo wasn't that bad though. It was only for like 2 minutes. It might be a little worse today. I don't know why nothing's changed since yesterday, but hopefully it's not bad. Yeah, some people are saying it sounds great. Okay, so some people are seeing an echo, some people are not. I know in the old studio there was like literally zero echo. Like one thing that was good about the old studio, even though there was various issues, is the audio was usually always good outside of when the mic broke. But like once we got the mic fixed in that 30-second span, the audio never had issues. So this one is just a different like space. So we'll get the look at the foam up there, and hopefully that should be fine. Yeah, a bunch of you guys are saying the sound is fine. Sounds pretty good. Okay, we'll make sure by the beginning of next week that stuff gets fixed as well. Okay, cool. So that's what we got in the context of the potential on if this is a bull market or not. Let's get into some of these headlines, and then we'll keep going from there. First of all, Trump's making an announcement at 2 p.m. Last time he made some announcement that everyone was concerned about. It was about the World Cup. This time, Fox News is reporting it is about the Department of Defense. Rumors are suggesting it will be called the Department of War. I don't know if that's the best way to name the Department of Defense, the Department of War. I mean, I don't know, dude. I would rather like them say Department of Offense. I think Karp mentioned that quote a while ago versus Department of War, but I hope that's not that. I mean, I don't know. I just think that's a little tacky to call it the Department of War. So we'll see. That's what Fox is reporting this morning. We're going to see if that ends up happening. I hope the 2 p.m. Special announcement is not based on renaming the Department of Defense. I hope it's something more serious. But if it is, then we'll cover it on the market close and we'll see what happens. But I don't know. I just think it's kind of tacky calling it the Department of War. But that is one of the things that we'll take a look at going into the end of the day. Also, there's this rumor that's going around across the entire ecosystem of covering politics that Trump's health is not in the best situation. I mean, look, we're going to see today, right? If he's making an Oval Office address or a press conference or whatever, the thing about Biden back in 2024 is not only was it obvious his health was in decline, he was hiding from the media, which made it way more obvious that his health was in decline. I mean, the easiest way to figure out if someone's health is in decline is if we get to see them live stream twice a day, every day, which is Trump has been doing literally for the past 8 months. Many times he goes live more than twice a day. And you can tell if the guy's health is not good. So I think these rumors, I don't see the truth in them. I haven't gone that deep into understanding Trump's health not being the best situation. But if this guy continues to go live as much as he's going live, then we're going to see. So yeah, I think we will have a better confirmation on what his health looks like based on how he talks, how he's able to compose himself inside of these special events that he hosts inside the White House. So we'll get a better understanding from that as well. All right, so here are the top headlines this morning across the market. Michael Saylor buys another 4,000 Bitcoin, another 450 million worth of Bitcoin. Klarna, they are officially going public at 35 to 37. I think Klarna looked at the market and they were like, holy crap, we kind of have to go public at this point, because if we don't go public, we're going to have some issues. So I will not be buying the Klarna IPO. Buy now, pay later. It is an attractive business given kind of the way consumers, especially millennials and Gen Z, are thinking of credit versus buy now, pay later. However, if you just look at some of the delinquency rates across the country, it doesn't look like buy now, pay later, if we get any level of a recession or macroeconomic headwind, would be in the best situation. So they're trying to raise 1.2 billion. We'll see how that plays out. Probably will do well as an IPO, just given every IPO has been doing well, but we're going to see what ends up happening. Arnie says market's down after Amit betrayed his bricks. Arnie will be here in the new studio. We'll do a live stream together next week. So very excited for Arnie to be here, and he will get to confirm once again, like he did in 2024, that the bricks are indeed real. And we will see him soon. Tesla sold 600 cars within their first month debut in India. This was a little embarrassing for Tesla. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I think you do have to cut them some slack. It's only been a couple weeks since they've been in India, but India has 1.4 billion people. To sell 600 cars just means that maybe their offering is not resonating with a lot of people, which I also always thought I never understood why India was an attractive market. I know there's a lot of people in India, but if you've been to India, the Tesla form factor on the roads does not feel like a form factor that would be highly successful, just based on my previous experience in India. Also, EVs are not really a thing there, or maybe the government wants them to be a thing, but it's a lot of gas that's used ultimately to get things done. So I don't know. We definitely got to give it time, but Europe and India sales, not the best for Tesla, and it is what it is. We'll see how the street reacts to that. Tesla did release their master plan part 4. I also thought it was a bit underwhelming. I'm not even trying to hate on Tesla. It's just anyone who read it, it was just like, okay, AI is important, was the thesis of their part 4 master plan. If this is a master plan, this is supposed to be something that like Elon hand writes to tell all shareholders, hey, this is what we're going to do over the next couple of years. I just didn't get the juice out of that master plan to be that exciting. Now we'll talk about this. The UK 30-year yield officially rose about 5.7%. This one was weird. This is the first time since April of 1998, despite 5 rate cuts in the past year. We'll talk more about that. And then BitMine, new press release came out this morning. They now have 8.98 billion in cash and crypto holdings. They bought another 100,000 Ethereum. They have 1.87 million versus 1.71 million on the books last Friday. The company is worth 7.5 billion. Their total cash and crypto is worth about 9 billion. So I mean, they're cheap if you believe Ethereum is not going to crash. If you believe they stay at their net asset value, because Ethereum kind of stays in this range of 4,200 to 4,500, yeah, BitMine is cheap because theoretically they probably shouldn't fall that far below their total cash and crypto. And if they do, that's where they have the money available to do a buyback. But if Ethereum crashes in September, I mean, it obviously could be very ugly. So we're going to see what ends up playing out. But if you are bullish Ethereum, probably being bullish BitMine makes sense. It's just if Ethereum takes a bit of a breather, BitMine will also take a bit of a breather. And that's what the market's going to have to kind of figure out over the next 30 days. Now, let's get into this conversation right here. It was weird to me, but it's also an argument for why I think the market is so afraid of anything except gold right now. The UK 30-year yield officially crossed about 5.7% for the first time since April of 98. Now, that headline, given it's April of 1998, already is catching attention. But the bigger story right here is the Bank of England cut rates 5 times in the past 12 months. So when you have the Bank of England saying, hey, we're going to cut rates, and the yields on these bonds are not cooperating, aka showing some weakness based on the Bank of England cutting rates, it's a little scary, because the inevitable argument that everyone says in the United States is, wait a second, what about the US? Like, one of the whole reasons Trump wants rates to come down, outside of a variety of things in regards to mortgages and auto loans, credit card rates, et cetera, is to get long-term rates down. or at least to get, some part of the yield curve to come down. Maybe the 30-year spikes up and maybe the 10-year comes down. So if we have to refinance our debt on the 10-year, the United States has about 10 trillion of debt we need to refinance. It's at a lower borrowing rate. What if these rates don't come down even if we lower, or what if these yields don't come down even if we lower rates? And again, the logic here is when you lower rates, yields should become more attractive, which means because you're not going to be getting as much as you were getting before, which means people step in to buy. You have a lot more buyers. You have less supply. The price goes down, and that ultimately helps the United States with financing our country because we can refinance our debt at a lower rate because the overall buyers are coming in down. The overall buyers are coming in, which is getting those yields to fall. But if people end up selling those yields or selling those bonds, which causes yields to go higher, even with rates coming down, because they just don't trust the trajectory of deficit and debt spending that a country is having, which seems like what's happening in the United Kingdom today. And they go into gold and silver breaking out to an 11-year high, gold breaking out to an all-time high. I mean, things can get kind of wonky in the broader economy as well. So I think the expectation that the United States is not going to be able to service our debt, the expectation that other global countries across the world are starting to use gold as a better store of value than U.S. Treasuries, which, take a look at this chart right here. I saw this morning, and I mean, it's not the prettiest chart. The dollar is losing reserve currency status. It's down to 42% of global reserves. Gold is rapidly rising. There was another chart that's been going viral over the past couple of days as well that shows central banks now hold more commodities and metals inside of their reserves. This is the chart right here. Gold is one of the biggest one of those commodities that they hold. Then treasuries, U.S. treasuries, since 1996. This is the first time, as you can see, that yellow line is converging above the blue line. Blue is treasuries, yellow is gold, for foreign central banks across the world. So look, does this mean you kind of panic and sell everything and go into gold? I don't think so, because the irony of all of this is, hey, let's say people are starting to lose faith in U.S. treasuries and the dollar, which I think it's a bit hyperbolic. I think, you're seeing some macro movements and foreign exchange currencies moving in different places. I don't think this is like the death of the dollar or anything like that. One asset that people are also going to go to are equities, right? Like if you don't want to buy U.S. treasuries, if you don't want to buy gold, you don't want to buy silver, you think Nvidia is a better store of value, you think Robinhood's a better store of value, you think Coca-Cola, Pepsi are better stores of value, even if they're not yielding as much as a high beta growth stock. By the way, Pepsi, Elliott took a $4 billion stake in these guys. So they're up 5%. I don't know what Elliott is trying to do. They are a hedge fund that is an activist investor, or whatever stakes they take, they tend to be activist in nature. And I don't know what they're trying to do with Pepsi, but it looks like they're trying to do something. That stock's up 5.38%. But equities theoretically can become a safe haven. Now, the problem is that if you have a lot of macro issues, equities also can, if they're trading at elevated multiples, which a lot of equities are trading at elevated multiples, they don't become that much of a safe haven, because one could argue they are overvalued in the broader scheme of the economy. If treasuries are not doing the best, if yields are spiking, if gold's giving you a better alternative, if the money market funds are still giving you 4%. So it's going to be a very interesting September. You got foreign banks getting into gold. You got gold and silver breaking out. You have equities that are now down. And, if Meta went to 600, would that be the craziest thing in the world? Not really. I mean, Meta's a great company, but it gets a multiple based on its growth. Now, I think 600 would be ridiculous based on their future earnings potential that they've outlined very clearly. But if the market says we just don't want to give you that multiple right now, like, I don't think that's insane. And I could see that happening. Same thing to Hood, same thing to Palantir, same thing to SoFi. We could see those things happen, even if they would be attractive buying opportunities. But we're going to have to see how September ends up playing out. Equities are based on U.S. debt. Yeah, well, that's another thing. I mean, if the broader global market does not believe in the state of the United States being able to finance our debt, and look, the big beautiful bill, as much as it's good for the economy in regards to deregulation, definitely did not help convince global investors that America has our debt under control. That could be something that also hurts equities as well. The funny thing is, it kind of just feels like it happened all of a sudden, right? Like, I know gold's been breaking out all year, but it's like September is supposed to be seasonally weak, and then boom, yesterday gold breaks out to an all-time high, silver's at an 11-year high. Kind of just straight up happens. Obviously, stocks are down in the pre-market because of that as well. And it's now just a question of like, all right, where does this go? Is gold going to 4,000? Is silver going to 50? Or are they going to consolidate here? Or are they going to get sold off if NVIDIA gets to like 140 and people are like, why the hell would I bet gold when NVIDIA is at 140, right? Like, I think the next 30 days are going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. This also feels exactly like 2024 because 2024, we also had the first day of September suck. We were down 4.68%. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I remember streaming from AIPCon at a hotel. And I remember it was just an ugly day for not only Palantir stock, but for the entire market. It was down 4.68%. I mean, down 4% of the S&P. April had the worst we had was down 6%. So we were almost as bad as April in September. And then people bought the dip and we kind of recovered and we had a good end of the year. So I don't know. This is going to be interesting, but I think really good companies that are putting up really good earnings at the end of the day, PPI, CPI, gold, silver, none of that has that much of an impact if those companies are able to put up the earnings, because at the end of the day, the market wants to invest in things that are growing. People desperately need assets that can grow, and the best assets that can grow are equities if they can put up the growth. And I think they likely get a bit more attractive if we see some pain. So that's some of the stuff that we've got going on right now. All right, let's hear from the professor and get his thoughts on kind of where this bull market is going, and then we'll get a couple other headlines that going on, and we will go from there. Oh, we got this headline real quick. Let me see. United States revokes Taiwan semis waiver allowing for shipments to China. Okay, hold on. That's actually sounds like a big one. United States revokes TSMC waiver allowing China shipments of chip supplies. Huh. Where's TSM stock right now? TSM, oof, down 3%. Well, I mean, that's consistent with a lot of other stocks in the pre-market. What does that even mean? United States revokes TSM waiver allowing China's shipment of chip supplies. So they're stopping TSM from shipping to China? Or they're stopping the TSM United States operations from, because the TSM does have some plants in the United States? I don't know. That is an interesting one. We'll see if we can get some more coverage on that. But that, I mean, I don't know all the details about that headline, but that in and of itself could definitely get the semis to have some pain. Broadcom does have earnings this week, and this will be an important one. Broadcom was at 310 last week, or is at 317. Now it's at 289. So we're going to see how this one ends up playing out. Yeah, TSM is Taiwanese, so the United States can't force the company to do anything, but they have a United States plant in Arizona, so maybe that's the one they're talking about in regards to China waivers. I'll see if we can get some more coverage on that, and we'll try to see exactly what's going on there.
Right now is Jeremy Siegel. He's chief economist at Wisdom Tree and professor emeritus of finance at University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School of Business. And Jeremy, we're down on this first trading day of September, probably because of questions about the tariffs. But I don't know, we're also at relatively high levels. How are you feeling about things right now?
Yeah, and probably because of September,
right?
being historically really the worst month of the year. Listen, certainly we could have a pullback. I mean, I still think the bull trends are intact. I know you guys mentioned the Wall Street Journal article this morning about all-time high, so I took it out and read it, and it said, oh, yeah, it's all-time highs relative to sales. Well, I thought we, value stocks on earnings, not sales. And
right.
We're way, below any all-time high in terms of earnings. Not that it's not an expensive market, but once you take out, and even that article admitted, once you take out the Mag 7, we're only, slightly above a longer-term medium. So I still think this bull run has a place to go. Revisions are still upward. I mean, there's a lot of things that can derail it. I mean, the tariff development is very interesting because I think it's going to go to the Supreme Court. And I think the Supreme Court's going to throw it back to Congress and say, have the Republican Congress say okay, and then it'll go through, and that's going to be very interesting politics, I think, in the second half of this year.
It's just the Senate that would have to sign off on it, right?
Interesting sort of development.
Yeah, I mean, he has control. The party has control of the Senate, of the Congress. We'll see if they would choose to fight him on that or whether they'd say, okay, we go along with what we've seen to this point. But I want to go back to what you just said, this idea that we're at the highest level if you divide by sales. I mean, we mock people when they look at sales. We say that's not the real number. You're right. If we're looking at earnings, that seems like the much more important number to bear out.
And basically, some of these headlines are saying on a price to sales basis, the S&P is the most expensive ever, but on a price to earnings basis, earnings are growing, much better than sales based on margin enhancements, efficiency, AI, et cetera. That's where we're still slightly above the long-term average, but it's not as aggressive as if you looked at a PE versus PS.
The biggest companies you're talking about, the Mag 7 are the richest in terms of price to sales, probably too, because of all the potential.
And it's because the margins of those companies are so high. Margins of digital tech companies have always been the highest. So if they're predominant, you're going to get a result such as this. And I think that's built into tech. Tech has very, very high margins because of the way accounting goes and the way globalization and how you can replicate at virtually no cost. All you need is those customers to come. So it's a very different sort of a thing than looking back at a steel company or an auto company. And to put them all together, I think gives a misleading look at the market.
Yeah, so at its core, it's like, again, given this is a ugly month and given today's an ugly day, if this continues, a lot of the media headlines are going to be rooted in the most overvalued, most expensive companies, most expensive market ever. I think it's important to look at what the media is portraying in terms of the most overvalued stock market ever versus what's actually under the hood. And under the hood is massive levels of earnings growth, which is why we're paying a premium on that growth. Now, if that earnings growth goes away, it's going to be ugly. But if it doesn't, which all signs are indicating to, based on everything we're looking at every day, that this earnings growth is not going away anytime soon, that's why you're paying a multiple. And the question becomes, how much does that multiple get compressed in a bad macro for whatever the bad macro is, gold, silver, UK's bonds, whatever it is, versus how many people step in and buy that dip once that multiple does compress? Because again, there's just not that many assets in the world that are growing at these levels. Quick update on Grab. So I'm going to link this thread in the chat by one of my friends on X who did a really good job documenting it. The TLDR is that there have been various protests in Indonesia, particularly around the economy, housing, a lot of nuanced details that Indonesians uniquely are upset about. Indonesia is one of Grab's biggest market, or I think it is Grab's biggest market. It has 285 million people. It's the largest market in Southeast Asia. 2 Grab drivers were killed. One from Gojek, one from Grab, I believe. So 2 local workers in the ride-hailing apps that are very well known inside of Indonesia and Jakarta in particular. And they were run over by a police vehicle. A armed police vehicle ran over those drivers to kind of quell some of the protests that were disrupting in the middle of the street. And so as a result, this is obviously a horrible thing to see. Anthony Tan, the CEO, visited the drivers' families. I thought this was an exceptional level of leadership to be able to go visit those families. Grab is also going to be pledging some monetary support to these families that ended up losing their loved ones based on these protests. And essentially, there's been widespread outrage across Indonesia for the fact that 2 police armed vehicles literally just ran over a Grab driver and a Gojek driver. And as a result, the government has taken away some of the policies they were thinking about when it came to housing. So it's like the protests were successful in terms of getting the government to pull back some of the regulations that were just not going to be as economically friendly towards the middle class, lower class inside of the country. But it came at the cost of life. So what does that mean for the company in general? The GMV growth in Indonesia theoretically could deaccelerate just based on all the disruption. GMV is the indicator for how much revenue they're going to make, right? The gross merchandise of volume, how much is actually being transacted on the platform. However, the counter argument to that is that even within everything going on, there's a lot of people that are wanting to support Grab because Grab has done the right thing by picking the side of the drivers and not the government, obviously, even though they have in Southeast Asia, you've got to be very politically correct. And so, even with their deep ties to the Indonesian government, they are offering support for the drivers, offering monetary support to the families of the drivers. And so there are some reports that people are now starting to buy more from Grab and purchase more from Grab as a sign of support to all the other drivers that have to deal with these types of conditions. So I don't know what impact that's going to have on the stock itself. I realistically, you know, even if there's a slight decline in GMV, I don't think that ruins Grab's growth story, especially if it's just for one quarter. But it is a very sad story. It is something that is some not bad PR for Grab, but it's just overall bad headlines for Southeast Asian companies in the region. And you could see the stock kind of sell off. I realistically, I think this, you know, it's down 1% in the pre-market because the S&P 500 is down 1%. But we're going to see how this ends up playing out going into the end of the year. So look, I still think Grab has a breakout towards the end of the year. They have $7 billion in cash, trading at 40% cash. I think their risk reward is much more attractive than a lot of other names, especially if multiples are getting compressed, because Grab doesn't really have the biggest multiple in the first place. But this is one thing that, you know, we're gonna have to keep an eye on going into the end of the year. Short-term Grab might be hit a little, but this is a huge positive for Grab. We may not see it now, though. Yeah, I agree. And, you know, Grab's doing the right thing by taking the side of the driver and you know, this is the reason why I invested in Anthony Tan. I mean, at the end of the day, there was no way in hell he was going to not support the driver's family or offer them monetary compensation, because the entire company has been built off the ethos of helping the most underserved. It's why they didn't make a profit for 10 years. And now they're making a profit while helping people that are the most underserved, which to me is pretty exceptional. And if that can just continue to grow, that's where I think they really get their multiple. But that's how the company right now is dealing with the situation in Indonesia. So that's what we got in the context of Grab. Dens, thank you for the $50 super chat. Appreciate that. Congrats on another milestone. Please accept this as a housewarming gift. Thanks for inspiring us as always. Thank you for the super chat. Deeply appreciated. I was reading the comments on the stream last night. All I can say is thank you for all the support, and it's very humbling to see that many people just say congrats on the new milestone in life and the new apartment and new studio, and to you know, to advancing in terms of just as a human being, you know, moving out on your own, especially as a guy, 28 years old, trying to just do my own thing. It really is special to me. I think it's the right time to start doing this. And it means a lot that so many of you guys are so supportive and you know, happy to be on the journey. And you guys are on the journey with me. I mean, we kind of all moved out my parents' basement. So we are officially here. It is a bit emotional for my mom. I will say that. I didn't think my mom would be that emotional, but you know, when I finally left the house, she, you know, obviously the tears started coming out. She started crying, all that stuff, because at the end of the day, you know, her son's leaving. But I think she raised me the right way with the right values, which is why we built such a community here, right? I think if I wasn't raised with the right values, humility, and just, you know, staying true to myself, authenticity, then we wouldn't have the community that we have. And I don't think that many people would be even happy for this new milestone in my life. But the fact that we're all here together, we all celebrate each other's wins, we all deal with each other's losses, that's what kind of makes this whole thing so special. So I'll be seeing her again on Sunday. I'm going back on Sunday. I'll be seeing her pretty soon. I'm going to try to visit her more often in the first couple months of moving out, you know, because it is hard on her as well. But I'm excited to be here. All right, so we got 11 minutes until the market opens. Let's get into some of these other headlines that we got going on, and then we will keep going from there. So we talked about the UK. This was a headline I thought was really interesting. Microsoft is offering the US government $6 billion in savings on cloud services over the next 3 years. Microsoft's Office productivity software is widely used within the U.S. government. It is the latest company to offer discounts to the U.S. General Services Administration. The deal could result in more than $6 billion in savings over 3 years, with $3.1 billion coming in year one. I think a lot of companies are going to have to get very creative in terms of how they offer services to the U.S. government if the U.S. government starts to get a little bit more weary on spending as much money as they've been spending in the past. Now, speaking of U.S. government contracts, we did get a new Palantir contract that was received from the State Department. We don't have the level of money that is associated with this contract. It seems like a multi-year contract. There's a bunch of quotes in this. I'll link it right here in the chat for those that haven't read it. But one of the quotes that I thought was the most exciting was, given the importance of the state's global mission objectives, single solution breadth, and deployable AI ML capabilities, it is only available through Palantir's Foundry solution. And this is from the State Department website itself. And there's a couple more quotes that are very similar to that. Basically, the State Department is saying there's no competition. There is no one else that can do what Palantir is doing right here, which is actually very, very exciting. So again, Palantir trades at a hell of a multiple. That multiple could get compressed in an ugly September. But the reason it trades at that multiple is because investors are expecting massive growth in commercial and government. Palantir is the only software company in AI that's actually delivering that type of growth, right? NVIDIA is doing it in hardware, and Palantir is doing it in software. And as a result, contracts like that continue to at least somewhat explain why they get that multiple, even though Palantir right here is down about 3.58% in the pre-markets. So that's what we got on Palantir. Amit, do you think this is a good price to enter BMNR, or do you think you should wait for a dip? Well, again, the thing about BMNR is that it is now trading 42.90 at about 7.5 billion. That is below the 9 billion, 1.5 billion below that it has in cash and crypto. So do I think this is a good time to buy it? I think it is opportunistic if, and here's the big if, you believe that ETH is not going to crash. So theoretically, is it a good time to buy? Sure. But if ETH crashes like 3,500 because September just gets that ugly, which maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, we're going to see, then Bitmine's going to be way more attractive, right? And so it's hard to answer that question unless you really believe ETH is able to hold these levels. If you think it is, then yeah, I think trading 1.5 billion below its actual cash and crypto means it's likely in a better situation than now. But we're gonna have to see. Also, I'm selling covered calls against my Ethereum or against my Bitmine. I think the covered call premiums are incredible. The covered calls have been going good so far. So, it's at 43, selling covered calls at 48, 49. I don't think is that crazy. If they do get called away, they get called away. I'm not like married to Bitmine. I don't care that much about it as an investment. Although I do think it is one of the best risk rewards in the market. So I would roll those covered calls. But I think as a way to generate some income, if it stays kind of stuck in this range, then it's not too bad. This was Tom Lee this morning. He put out a new video discussing why he's so excited about Bitmine as well.
Ethereum is having its 1971 moment, where the real-world assets are becoming synthetic or tokenized. Treasury Secretary Bessent sees this becoming a multi-trillion-dollar market for stablecoins. And it's not just stablecoins, but banks are already moving to build products on Ethereum, whether it's JP Morgan, Robinhood, Goldman, Bank of New York, even Walmart and Amazon. So what does this mean? Well, in 2025, as the real world becomes digital, it's going to be natural to say, I want to find the digital store value, and that is Bitcoin. And I'm a believer in Bitcoin. But it's also going to create a market for digital assets. And we think the winner there is Ethereum. And in fact, Wall Street is building here on Ethereum. So let's just think about one story arc. What is Wall Street going to do to innovate on the blockchain over the next 10, 15 years? Well, they're going to build stable coins, tokenize equities, credit, tokenize real estate. They're going to monetize reputation, even monetize intellectual property. And a lot of this is happening on Ethereum. For instance, this is a tweet from Adriano Feria that Ethereum added $6.3 billion of stablecoins just in the last 7 days. Well, that's more than half of all the stablecoins Solana has managed to capture in over the last 5 years. It's more than the entire stablecoin supply on Hyperliquid, and it's 35 times the amount of stablecoin circulating supply on Ripple.
Ethereum in the past week has captured more stablecoin supply than Solana has in the past 5 years. I mean, I heard that stat this morning and I was like, my goodness. So yes, the price of Ethereum is not going to the moon and, like spiking up as people would expect it to. But when Tom Lee called Bitcoin in 2017, it didn't do that either, right? It took some time. The thesis had to play out. But eventually, if you were levered into any Bitcoin strategy, AKA MicroStrategy, you've done very well. So for me, it's kind of like a company, like even if like Grab, right? Stock's not moving, but the earnings are exceptional. For Ethereum, you see types of statistics like this in regards to tokenization and stablecoins. Price movement is largely irrelevant. Is the network and the protocol becoming more valuable? If it is, then I think Tom Lee might be right that it is the macro trade of the next decade.
And the stablecoin supply in Ethereum is now $160 billion. That's double where it was about 18 months ago. So you can see Ethereum is the winner here. And Ethereum has captured the majority of the real world assets. They're all taking place mostly on Ethereum. And SharpLink's chairman, Joe Lubin, agrees. He says Wall Street will stake ETH because they currently pay for their infrastructure and Ethereum will replace much of the many siloed stacks they operate. Again, you can see a lot of this is taking place on Ethereum. And it's not just Wall Street. AI is also building products on the blockchain. In fact, we think one of the big story arcs is that it's not just Wall Street building itself onto the blockchain. It's really AI converging onto Ethereum. One of the co-founders.
So I'll link the video right here in the chat, but at its core, to me, I'm seeing more use cases. And as someone who analyzes companies more than I analyze cryptocurrencies, I care about the use cases of a company. I care about its potential growth in terms of its earnings. For Ethereum, I care about what are the use cases, who's building on top of it. And again, yes, Ethereum has gone from 1,500 to basically 5,000, right? Not exactly 5,000, 4,200, we got to 4,900 at one point. But that was kind of, from my understanding, more of the crypto people starting to realize this is going to get exciting. That was not Wall Street. And Wall Street is starting to get a lot more aggressive in terms of how they think about Ethereum, particularly in terms of stablecoins, tokenization, and then the ability for them to enable cross-border payments, remittances, all these different typical payment rails from MasterCard, Visa, et cetera, that Ethereum could be not only disrupting, but creating a bridge for those companies to be able to interact with in a much more sophisticated way. And as Wall Street gets more excited about it, that's where you have the potential for a company like BitMine and Ethereum itself to do well. And so we are going to have to see. Okay, so some of you are saying BitMine's market cap is at 10.2 billion. Can someone else confirm that? Because Webull and Robinhood are showing me 7.5 billion. Historically, they might be, historically they have been wrong. So I think it might be 10.2 billion. Let me see on my side as well. Because if that's the case, then it's not trading below its cash and cash holdings. It's trading at a slight premium above it, which means, yeah, even Google is saying 7.6 billion. That's weird, bro. Google, Robinhood, and Webull are saying 7.6. If it's actually 10.2 and its holdings of cash and crypto are 9, that is trading at a 1.1, 1.2x NAV, which is historically what it should trade at. And this is theoretically the multiple that it will maintain. And as they grow their Ethereum, the overall stock price should rise with that multiple. But if it's trading below, then that's different. 7.6 billion is real. Okay, well, why are some of you saying 10.2? That's what I thought. Seeking Alpha saying 7.6. All right, everyone else, TOS saying 7.4. IBKR saying 7.9. None of the platforms have the correct share count. They're all outdated. All right, well, when the market opens, we should start to see the more accurate share count, and we'll see what this looks like. But if it is at 7.5, obviously it's much more discounted. If it's at 10.2, then it's trading at its historical multiple that it's been trading at for the past couple of weeks, which is reasonable. We listened to Tom Lee yesterday as well when Steve and I were on the show, and he talked about why BitMine should get a multiple. And essentially he said the staking yield they get, which turns into GAAP net income, the velocity of how they can raise money, because that's based on how much ETH per share they can grow, and the overall network effect of the value of the protocol. You put all that together into an asset like BitMine. That is why, he thinks it deserves a multiple. So we'll see how the market thinks about that as we get into it going into September. All right, folks, we got 1 minute. This will be the first market open in the new studio. Let's see what we got. Unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be red. Very curious, though, if that red recovers or if it continues to be red. Let's do a poll real quick right before the market opens. Do we decline more than 1.5% on the S&P today? That's the question. So we're down about 1.2. Question is, do we decline more than 1.5? Shout out to Mr. Derek Wall joining 20 seconds before the bell. Thank you, brother, for being here. Gifted 50 memberships. A bunch of you guys got a membership. Terry, you got a membership. Vishal, you got a membership. Juan, you got a membership. Scott, Techno, Randy Singh, Steven, Hills, RG Trades. A bunch of you guys, Claremont, all of you guys got memberships courtesy of Mr. Derek Wall. Derek, thanks for being here. Thank you all for being here. It is 9:30 a.m. Tuesday, September 2nd. First market open from the new apartment. The market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Hoodie goes below 100. Hoodie goes below 100, 99.17. Down 4.6%. I don't even want to open up my Robinhood account because that's going to be ugly. SoFi, 4% down, below 24.50. S&P, 1.27. 67% of you said we will go down below 1.5%. That would be another, I think, $3 to $4 on the S&P. So let's see if it gets there. Duolingo, this one, demolished. Just absolutely demolished. 289.27. Tanner's getting more interested about this one. He did an entire deep dive on Friday on his channel, if anyone's curious about that. But Duolingo right here, that's down about 3%. Open Door, that's down 5%. Costco, down 0.15. NVIDIA, down 3%. 168.82. NVIDIA is now down about 10% from the 185 high or 184 high that it hit on Friday. Cypher is down 3%. Palantir is down 4%. Google down 2.4%. The Q's down 1.8%. Marvell continuing its pain after an earnings that just weren't that strong. That one is down another 1.5%. MicroStrategy, that's down 1%. Adobe, down 1.5. Figma, if you got Figma from Robinhood on the IPO and you got one share, you can officially sell it today without getting banned from the platform. I sold mine this morning at, I think, about $69. So made about 110%. But yeah, now you are allowed to sell your Figma. That one's down about 4%. Grab right here, down about 2.7. Apple down about 2%. Iran down 3%. Netflix down 2%. Snapchat down 3%. There she goes, below $7. Sharplink Gaming, that's down 3.8. Bitmine, that's down 3%. Pepsi's green because Elliott took a $5 billion stake in Pepsi today. So Pepsi is green. Again, I have no idea what Elliott wants to do with Pepsi as an activist investor, but that's why that stock is holding up. A lot of the other value plays, let me see, are they holding up? Verizon, that one. Yeah, Verizon, I mean, it's barely green, but it's green. Berkshire Hathaway is barely red, but it is red. Silver's up and gold is up. So what's green? Silver, gold, and Pepsi. I mean, everything else is down. CleanSpark's down. IWM is down. Tesla's down. CoreWeave's down. CoreWeave down 9%. Goodness gracious. SoFi down 7%. It's like, does SoFi deserve to go down 7%? Does it, like, after those earnings, 44% year-over-year growth, does it deserve to chop off 7% in a day because of whatever UK bond yields? I mean, I don't think so, right? So the question now is, does the market think so? And do people buy that dip, or does this one continue to see some pain going into the end of September? Robinhood, 99.14, trying to fight between 98 and 99. That's down 4.7%. S&P is now down 1.3. We've got about 0.15 left before it goes down officially 1.5%. And then the next stop is down 2% on the day. We'll see if that gets there. Open Door down 5%. Costco's down 0.3%. NVIDIA trying to recover a little bit at 169.78, up from 167, but that one's still down 2.5. Palantir also, you got a green candle on Palantir. You got a green candle on Palantir, very small green candle, 152.34. Are we seeing that across the board? We're not seeing that green candle across the board. It's hard to say that it's an algorithmic green candle. You still have a lot of stocks that are still bleeding, but Palantir getting a little bit of green. Bitcoin at 109, Pepsi at 155. What about Walmart? That stock is up a little bit. Target, that stock is down. Even the value plays, they're up, but not up a lot. It's not like there's a full rotation going into them. Semis are all blood red. Semis are all blood red. The VIX should be spiking. Let me take a look at the VIX. VIX is up 17%. Wow. When's the last time we had a 17% day on the VIX? It's been a minute. Historically, 30% and up in a day is prime buying opportunities, but let's see if it actually gets that ugly. ASML down 3%, Intel down 3%, SMCI down 4%, AMD down 3%, NVIDIA down 3%, Dell down 3%, Micron down 3.5%, ARM down 3.7%, Lam Research down 4%, Marvell down another 1%, Taiwan Semi down 1.3%. That one's actually getting a little bit of a green candle as well. Still unsure what that headline about China was in the morning, so we'll see if we can get some more coverage on that. All the software names besides GitLab are down. All the software names besides GitLab are down. August 1st, we did have the VIX up 21%, and that was a 1.62% down day on the S&P 500 with the VIX up 20%. Right now, VIX is up 17%, so we'll see if the S&P follows and falls another 0.3% from here. We're at 1.3. And if it does, then, maybe that is going to be a bit more of the pain that we see similar from August 1st. We are seeing a little bit of recovery. NVIDIA's back to 170. I mean, I know it's only 5 minutes into the day, but a lot of this pain is either getting flushed out right now and buyers are coming in, or it's a head fake and this flush is going to continue in a couple hours. But you're not seeing the bottom falling out on stocks. Like the bottom falling out on Palantir would be 145 by now, right? It got to 150. People stepped in. Now it's at 152.74, almost at 153. Maybe that's a fake green candle, but it's not really the bottom falling out. Grab would be in like the 450s by now. You're not seeing that. Apple would be around 225. It's at 228. So, I mean, you're not necessarily seeing as much pain amid back to your basement. Yeah, dude, the market's going to crash so badly. I'm gonna move back out with the parents. SoFi right here, 2406. NVIDIA back to 170.5. SoFi also back to 24. S&P not really falling below 1.35. Now it's only down 1.27, 636.89, bottomed at 636.05 so far. We'll see if that's an actual bottom. Bitmine about to go green, folks. There she goes. Bitmine was at 42.06. Now it's at 43. Webull is still saying the market cap is 7.5 billion. Maybe Webull's wrong, but You got Bitmine right there at 43.64. Where is Tessie? Tesla was down 2%. Tesla is now down 1.5. Again, small green candles that we are seeing load up. Lucid, they raised some money the other day. Lucid is a $5 billion company. Oh, they did a reverse split already? Yeah, this stock is usually $2. I guess I think it was 180. They probably did a 10 for 1. So now it's 18.47. So that means if there were 1,000 shares, there's now 100 shares. Obviously with Lucid, there was a lot more than that. But the value of each of those shares in terms of its stock price rises 10 times, which just makes it easier for trading and staying above listing requirements, all that stuff. But the actual market cap doesn't change or anything like that. So if any brokerage is reporting a $50 billion market cap because of the 10 for 1 split, they're probably just messing it up. It's a $5 billion market cap. 1844, that's down 7%. Walmart slightly green. SoFi back to 24.30. This thing was just at 23.70. And Bitmine goes green, 43.75. 43.75 up from 42.06, which is what you had. Where is gold? Gold is also going up, so gold is not slowing down. That's still up 1%, basically all-time highs. Meta's at 730, that's down 1%. Hoodie, 99.75. Let's see if that can recover back to 100. I'm going to open up my Robinhood for the first time since the market opened and see. Actually, no, it's up more than what it was in the pre-market, dude. The pre-market was worse. The pre-market was worse. And the pre-market, it was down 91,000. Now it's down 27,000. That's incredible. That means we're like, 8 minutes into this market open, we're actually a little, even with Hood, which is a big holding for me, that one's still down. You're starting to see some of this stuff recover. Where's NVIDIA? NVIDIA trying to get back above 170. S&P trying to get back to 635.50 or 637.50. Celsius, they did buy Rockstar Energy last week. That was great for them. They're down 2%. But then their parent company, Pepsi, well, not their parent company, but Pepsi that has a large stake inside of Celsius, now just got an activist investor to the tune of $5 billion. So maybe that affects Celsius as well. We're going to see how that plays out. But Celsius right there down 2%. Webull down 2%. Mongo's about to go green on the day. Pinterest about to go green on the day. CleanSpark just went green. And then Rocket Lab, that's down 4%. But it is up from 45.68 in the market open. I'm buying Hood if it goes below 95. I mean, look, again, if the S&P falls a couple percentage points for this month, I could see Hood doing that. But it begs the question, will the S&P actually give a lot of these money market managers the dip they've been waiting for? There's so much money on the sidelines that's probably just inching to get into this market and waiting for an opportunity. And August did not give people August 1st gave you an opportunity at 618. And then since then, if you thought it would go lower, you just didn't get it. I think now if we revisit 618, which is down about 2.5% from here, a lot of people would be excited. I would probably get Hood back to 93, 94, which it was at on August 1st. But we got to see if that actually gets there. Bitmine, 44.10. Wow, Bitmine out of all stocks, one of the most high beta names, going green. Is Ethereum even green? I don't think Ethereum's running. Ethereum, a little bit, 43.50, up from 42.80. So you got an $80 move right there, but nothing too crazy. UNH, is that one moving? UNH 309, that one's flat. Should be green on a day like this when some of this high beta is selling off. So at least it's not super down, but it's not super green. GameStop, is that green as well? GameStop is green, 22.64. And Open Door, which is waiting for those rate cuts, is about to go green. Open Door was at 411. Now it's at 440. UTHR is up 40%. United Therapeutics, I have no idea what this company does. It sounds like drug discovery, which is why they're up 40%. $19 billion company. United Therapeutics, they posted a win for one of their trials 2 hours ago. That's why that stock is up 40%. This is the beautiful thing about biotechs. If their drugs win, the stock goes to the literal moon. If the drugs do not win or the trials don't go as well, you lose all your money. So I guess this is one where the drugs did end up working out. Hood right there, 99.99, trying to get back to 100. NEO had earnings today. They missed on EPS. They beat on revenue. They missed by like 30% on EPS. Let me pull up the exact numbers. It might have been a little bit less than that. But they missed on EPS. They beat on revenue. And sorry, they missed by 4%. I don't know why I said 40. So they missed by 4% on revenue. They beat by 19% on EPS. EPS is up 20% year over year. Revenue is up 11% year over year. This stock was at 350 a couple weeks ago. Now it's at 630. So it's had a hell of a run. But that stock right here is down about 1%. Hoodie back to 100. Back to 100. We get PMI in about 4 minutes. So we'll take a look at what services and PMI looks like. I'll get expectations on that in a second. Where is BMNR? 44.30. Wow, that one's actually making a move. I guess the street liked that they bought a lot more Ethereum over the past week, increasing their NAV. 44.35. That's green. BTC, that's at 110. That just went green. Salesforce has earnings on Thursday. That one's flat. Duolingo, 289 to 295. It looks like the intraday bottom so far was, let's get the exact minute on it. I mean, I don't know if that's exactly accurate. 9:33. Damn, that's when 3 minutes of the market opened. Yeah, 9:32 to 9:30. Palantir, 9:32. It bottomed at 150. Even Open Door, 9:33, bottomed at 411. NVIDIA bottomed at 168.65 at 9:32. 2 minutes into the market open, if that is the actual intraday bottom for the day, we'll find out over the next coming 5 hours if that's actually the bottom. Then we've just been recovering for the past 10 minutes since 9:32. Even Apple, yep, same time, 9:33 at 227.69. They're at 229.38. So we bottomed the first 3 minutes based on what I'm looking at. Yes, obviously in the next coming hours, if we revisit these 9:32 lows, which is very possible that could happen, then we did not bottom. But in the first 20 minutes of the day, it looks like the first 2 minutes of the day ended up being a potential bottom. Robinhood right here, 99.98. Lucid, 19. Even Lucid, it was down 7%. Now it's down 3%. It's quite hilarious. It's quite hilarious. All right, let me get up the numbers for ISM and PMI. So that should be coming out in a couple of minutes. We are looking for wait, do we have them today or do we have them? Oh, yeah, we do have them. Okay, so we're looking for 53.3, folks. 53.3 is what we want to beat. Again, above 50 is expanding. Below 50 is contracting in the economy. This is the global manufacturing PMI. Then you get ISM. That's at 10 a.m. We're looking for above 49. If we get like 54, 55, I think markets are going to love it. Now, inflation expectations probably wouldn't love it, but might help lessen the blow. If it's well below expectations, that could be a little bit more weakness in the economy. S&P 500 right there, 637 as well. 637 as Dell. We gap down. You would expect a slight bounce. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that's fair. I mean, and maybe that gap down is just the first of many gap downs that we're going to see. But it is funny that the bounce happens in 2 minutes. It's like you would think the gap down would take a little bit of time to marinate. It's like, nope, flushed out, and then people start buying. Algos start buying. I mean, it is quite incredible how resilient, at least within the first 10 minutes of the day, some of this market action is. But we got a long month, and we're going to see how this month ends up playing out. Iran right here goes green. A data center play that used to be a Bitcoin miner, you would think on a high beta sell-off day would not be going green. It's one of the first stocks to go green, up 2.5%. Fubo goes green, up 2.97%. All right, PMI. I think we should have the number. Let's see what we got. Wow, 53. 53. That is incredible. Just below expectations of 53.3. That is absolutely incredible. That is not showing weakness in the economy, folks. I mean, they got to do better than that to show real weakness in the economy. 53 versus 53.3. Last month, by the way, was 49.8. That is an incredible month-over-month increase from July to August. We'll get manufacturing in 15 minutes at 10 a.m. 53 PMI is nothing to be upset about. Bitmine right there, 44.60. That's up 2% on the day. S&P still down about 1%. SoFi trying to get back to 25. Grab trying to get back to 490. Meta 731. Meta was at 727 at around 932. Home Depot is up. Lyft is up. The VIX still up 22%. So VIX is still slightly, not slightly, more than slightly, but it's up right now. We'll see if that dies down a little bit. Duolingo 294, IBKR, they got into the S&P 500. They're down about 1.7%. And then Amazon 224. That is also green. Amit, if PMI is strong, will the Fed cut rates? That's a great question. I think it is inevitable that the Fed, as much as, there's some indicators that they probably shouldn't cut rates because the economy is strong enough. I think Jay Powell knows Trump will actually go insane if he doesn't cut rates. So I think we'll get 25 bips. I don't think some people are saying 50 bips. I don't think we're getting 50 bips. But at the end of the day, what did Jay Powell say at the FOMC? All of us were watching last Friday or 2 Fridays ago. The risk is about the labor market, not inflation. That's essentially what he said. So although PMI might be bad for inflation, if we get a bad labor market report, and we already have had a string of bad labor market reports, that could be why Jay Powell still decides that cutting is better than not. Not to mention you have a decent chunk of people on the Federal Reserve that are ready to cut. And so I think it would just be too politically concentrated to not cut this time. Let's get an update right here on PMI, and then we'll keep going from there.
Manufacturing PMI is out a couple minutes ago. Let's get to Rick Santelli. Morning, Rick.
Yes, this is the first of 2 groupings. This is the S&P manufacturing PMI. Top of the hour, we'll have ISM. This is a final read, so we replace mid-month read. Mid-month read for August was 53.3. The final read now becomes 53.0, which happens to be, just like the prior number of 53.3, the best of the year, best of 2025. This is the best going all the way back to May of 22. But here's the fly in the ointment. If you look at the July final read, the July final read was 49.8. That was the first under 50 read of the year. So we are showing some life definitely in the manufacturing side, even though it's a bit jumpy. Let's see how ISM looks at top of the hour. We were above 430 very briefly in a 10. Rates have come down since, although the entire curve is still higher than it closed on Friday before the holiday. But here's something interesting. We haven't closed above 430 yield in a 10-year since the 21st of August. Squawk on the Street will return.
And that is, what the market would like to see the 10-year stay at, below 4 1/3, 4.3. But we got to see if this is good enough to get us there. Bitmine's up 3% on the day, folks, 44.92. S&P continuing to chip away. Take a look at that green candle, 637.39, still down 1%, but it doesn't feel as bad as it felt at 932 when we had the worst of it. Ethereum trying to break to 4,400. Tesla's $2 away from going green. NVIDIA's $2 away from going green. SoFi basically at 25. Look at that. Hit 25.03. Now it's only down 2%. SoFi was at 23.70. I mean, if you bought it anywhere below 24, you're up $1, which is, especially if you're day trading, that's, an incredible return in 10 minutes. Meta right there at 730. JetBlue, that's up 1.6%. Applied Digital, that one's still down 3. Adobe's down 2.4. Adobe got downgraded by Oppenheimer to 180. And the argument was not Figma, not Canva, but bananas. Google's new banana thing is what got Oppenheimer to be like, dude, Adobe's cooked. When I was reading it this morning, they were just like, why would anyone use Adobe? They're like, this just once again proves there's really not that much of a use case to Adobe for the average person. Obviously, if you're a super high quality film editor, movie producer, yes, there's obviously going to be a market for Adobe, but the average person who interacts with AI is going to use Google or ChatGPT or something else. So Adobe right there, 347. That one is slightly down on the day, down 2.5%. Apple, 229. That's down 1.15%. SMCI, that's down 2.4. IREN, that's green, up 4.3. Fubo, that's up 5.3. SharpLink, about to go green. Bitmine, 44.75. Opendoor goes green. Opendoor goes green. Where's Big Bear? We haven't looked at these guys in a while. 506. It is better than where they were at 2 weeks ago. They were at 470 after earnings, down from $8. So they've kind of been consolidating around the 480-ish to $5 range, but that one is slightly green on the day. Opendoor, that's still up 1%. S&P, wow, S&P, look at that. 638.38. It is about 30 cents away from going under 1% down on the day. Again, 70% of you on the poll said we would have a 1.5% negative day on the S&P. So the majority of you still believe this would get ugly. But you're seeing some recovery. Gemini is going public. They announced their offering for 16 million shares at $17 to $19 each. This is the exchange founded by the Winklevoss twins. These are the guys that, I mean, if you watch The Social Network, it's pretty obvious that Zuckerberg stole Facebook from them, but he paid them a nice 60 million parking ticket, and they thought that was a lot of money. If they had taken equity over the parking ticket, that would be worth like almost, I think, was it 35 billion today? So they're a little pissed off about that. But those guys started a crypto exchange back in 2013 called Gemini. Looks like that one is going public. And so them and Klarna will be going public. Wow, S&P now below 1% red on the day at 638.80. The buyers are stepping in. Hoodie, 101.30. Buyers are stepping in. SoFi above 25, Berkshire above 500. Gold still green. It's not like gold is selling off while equities are trying to recover. So gold still holding on to up 1% on the day. Netflix above 1,200. That was below 1,200 10 minutes ago. Let me take a look at the heat map and see if there's any meaningful rotation. No, everything was red today. So this is kind of what I expected. There was nothing really standing out green outside of Pepsi. But maybe this whole chart looks a bit more green or a little slightly less red as we get into the end of the day. But it's kind of an everything sell-off in the morning. They did invest in, yeah, that is correct. They did invest in Bitcoin, which is the best performing asset of the decade. It's just if they kept their meta stake. I think I've watched The Social Network like 5 times. It's actually one of my favorite movies. And it's just so funny because Mark's like, yes, I messed up. I definitely, violated the terms of the contract that he had with the Winklevoss twins, but I'll give you $60 million to leave me alone. And in 2005, they were like, holy crap, like what if Facebook doesn't end up becoming a big company? Like, yeah, $60 million. If they had just taken equity instead of that 60 million parking ticket, I mean, it just would have been worth a lot more. It would have been worth a lot more. But Bitmine right there, 44.46. That one is down about 2%. Where's Oklo? And some of these nuclear names. Oklo, that's down about 1.87. SMR, that's down about 3.5. So the nuclear name's taking a little bit of a hit. S&P still 638.70, touched 639 at one point, back down to 638.65. So a little bit of resistance at 639. Tesla 331, and then Ethereum 43.70. Wow, Iran, dude, they had a great earnings, just an incredible earnings. If you believe in data centers, you believe in the build out, you believe in the partnerships they have with some of the hyperscalers, them and Wolf, Cypher, all these guys absolutely crushing it, pivoting from becoming a Bitcoin miner. And the fact that they're recovering before, and they're not only recovering, they're like thriving in this recovery. They're like, going up 7%. That is quite telling of just where some of the sentiment is. Or it's just a bunch of retail buying it up, which could also happen. But, retail would tend to potentially sell and take some profits as well. I mean, retail, we saw last week, retail was a net seller of equities for the first time in 8 weeks, $900 million worth of net selling. You might have retail getting scared when some of these losses get as aggressive as they are and people just want to book whatever profits they have. But you are getting a little bit of a reversal. Nuke, that stock is also up 42%. Nucleus, looks like a small cap, $49 million market cap. I don't think that has to do with nuclear energy, but that one is green. And then Bitmine right here, 44.27. S&P breaks 639. Dude, if we go green, we're $5 away from going green, folks. If we actually go, okay, so what do people think happens? Or what does it say about the market if we go green? Let's imagine S&P gets to 645 by end of day. Kind of think it's unlikely, but let's say it does happen. What does that mean for the first day of September for us to go down 1.4% in the first 2 minutes of the market open and then recover all of that by the end of the day? Is that bearish? Is that like, okay, there's too many algos playing around? Is that hyper bullish because it means 2 minutes was the opportunity you had to buy the dip? Is that just resilience? Like, what is it? Like, I don't know what that speaks to. Honestly, I don't have an answer to what that means, but it would be incredible to see if that happens. Or it's a head fake. And it's like, September 1st was a little bit of a reversal, went down, then went back up. But September 5th is when you're actually going to see the pain or whatever. It's like, there's just so many days left in the month that you don't really know. But August, we ended down 1.6%, and then slowly through the rest of August, we ended up recovering. I don't know if September is going to be the same, but it would be hilarious if like we go down and we recover within one day, and then we kind of stay flat for the rest of the month. Again, on average, for the past 15 years, S&P in September falls 1.2%. That is the average. So it's not like some 7, 8, 10% decline. That could happen. It's just historically, it's about 1.2%, which we saw in the pre-markets, 1.2%. So the question is now, does this sustain itself going into the end of the day and obviously throughout the rest of the month? Bitcoin, wow, 111. Bitcoin's green. Gold is green as well. Gold and Bitcoin. Gold's at all-time highs at 321. Bitcoin is not at all-time highs, but it is green. The actual price of gold is at 35.56. This is literally all-time highs. Year to date, up 33%. So even with equities trying to recover, gold is not necessarily getting sold off. Where's the 10-year? I guess the thing that's getting sold off would have to be, bonds. But this is not that dramatic. 4.281. I mean, you get to 4.5, it gets a little ugly, but so you're seeing a slight sell-off in bonds, but not some super, super ugly sell-off. CoreWeave's down 7%. Yeah, CoreWeave. I think there's a deep bull case to CoreWeave in the AI data center space. The problem is it's up still a lot from the IPO. Like if you bought an IPO, you just can't be upset that it's at $95, right? Same thing with Circle. Like if you bought Circle at the IPO at $30, it's at 128. It's not at 180 anymore, but you can't be that upset. You're still up 3-4x from the IPO. So I think there's a lot of people holding their CoreWeave that might not be selling, but also might not be that excited to buy. It is down from 150 2 weeks ago. The insiders now have the ability to sell because their lockup is done. I don't know why it's down this much as we get into the market open, but probably people just booking some profits. Nebius right here is down about 2% compared to CoreWeave. Down about 8%. In about 2 minutes, we're going to get ISM manufacturing. Street wants 49. Again, global manufacturing PMI came in at 53, which was very good against expectations. Let's see what ISM looks like. And we'll see if this one ends up being similar to PMI. Coinbase, that goes green. Hoodie again above 101, still down 3%, but that is better than being at 97. Reddit's at 222. Amazon's at 224. Robinhood's event also will be next week. I'll be in Vegas for that event. Excited for it. Vlad's been tweeting a bunch about it. We'll see what happens. Also, the HIMS CEO, Andrew Dudum, followed Vlad. I don't know if that matters, but he did follow Vlad last night. And so you got the HIMS CEO and the Robinhood CEO with each other. Now, one of the Robinhood executives left Robinhood to go to HIMS as well, which I think is bullish for HIMS because it means you have more tech people there. But we're going to see how that ends up playing out. We have some breaking news on our senators. Representative Mike Collins filed 2 new trades. He bought 15,000 of Ethereum and bought 15,000 of a meme coin called Ski Mask Dog. Okay. He now has filed 745,000 worth of crypto trades since entering office. Mike Collins is the representative. This is the guy who bought Ski Mask Dog. It's quite a time to be alive. Georgia's 10th congressional district, Republican senator or Republican representative, Ski Mask Dog. This is not really helping the argument for us not topping out right now. I'm just saying it's definitely not helping. ISM, what do we got? 48.7, folks. 48.7. That is not bad. That is not bad. 49 was the expectation. 48.7 is what we got. Very similar to PMI, 53.3. We came in at 53. Both of them missing by 0.3, which again, it just is not that bad of a miss. And then employment on manufacturing, Street wanted 43.4. We came in at 43.8. Came in at 43.8. Not too bad for services. Again, below 50, which is contracting, but above expectations, which is kind of what the market cares about. Let's see the S&P right here. Is that above S&P 639? Look at that green candle, 640. Now we're only down 0.82% on the day. This was down almost 1.4 at 9:32, 29 minutes later. We were at 639, getting a bit of recovery. Ski Mask Dog, let me check the price of that. That ticker is up 8% on the day. It is a $40 million market cap. I have no idea why Senator Collins or Representative Collins would buy Ski Mask Dog. One of you guys said his son probably bought it. I mean, maybe, because just like, why would a representative buy this? I don't know. But PMI looks like it's strong, which is not too bad.
For the headline number, 48.7, which means we have 6 consecutive readings now below 50, which is contraction territory. But 48.7 is actually the best number since June, when it was 49, still below 50. If we look at prices paid, there's some good news here. 63.7. 63.7 would be the smallest prices paid number since Feb of this year. That's a good thing. Prices paid going down take some of the inflationary pressures off of many products. If we look at new orders, 51.4, this is the only number above 50. 51.4 takes us back to where we were in January. That's the comp, 55.1. And by the way, that was the last time it was over 50. So we've reached once again on new orders back above that expansion mode. On the employment front, on this very important week, we're going to get 2 employment reports. Comes in at 43.8. 43.8 would be comping to the weakest level since 43.4 just last month. So we see that we are not doing very well. This is 7 consecutive employment component that is in contraction territory, meaning under 50. Construction spending always 2 months in arrears. This July number comes in at -110, pretty much exactly as expected.
All right, so a lot of the economic data quite muted compared to the expectations, which is rather bullish, but PMI on services and global manufacturing is what we cared about. And those came in not better than expected, but within expectations, which is still relatively bullish, especially if there are some concerns about the broader economy. Iran's up 7%, S&P, I mean, I don't know, bro. It has to recover about 0.85 to go green for the day. Could I see that happening? Yes. Could I also think that's getting a little too greedy? Also, yes. But it's not down as bad as it was before. Trump to announce Space Command headquarters at 2 p.m. Eastern. Okay, so it looks like Bloomberg is reporting the 2 p.m. special announcement by Trump. This might not even be Bloomberg. The White House might have put out the press release. Let me see if I can find it. Trump to announce Space Command headquarters, 2 p.m. Eastern. Interesting. So it might not be the whole Department of War versus Department of Defense thing. United States Space Command is getting their own headquarters. That is interesting. I mean, it's still a defense-oriented announcement. Maybe they do actually change the name of the DoD. Who knows? But okay, it looks like that's what we're going to see. Defense stocks potentially could catch a bid on that. Palantir right there, 150. Wow, Palantir, $1 away from going green on the day. Huh. Did anyone expect a 932 intraday bottom to like not full recovery, but to recovery to the point where 5% down goes to 1%? I mean, I didn't expect that. And we still got a lot of hours left of the day, but I did not expect to see that happen that quickly. And again, we could still see a lot of more pain throughout the day, but as of now, for us to go back down to those 932 lows, we have to fall about 4% on a lot of these different stocks that have recovered 4% of the S&P. We have to fall another 1%. I don't know. We got to see if there's enough juice to get us down there. We got to see if that can happen. It was an easy trade if you look at the fib lines. Well, for those that traded it today, congrats. I mean, you made some decent money. And again, I have no idea what happens for the next few hours. Maybe this was just a 30-minute to 45-minute head fake and we go much more below. But if you got into SoFi at 2370, sell at 2450, I mean, it's some good money on a day trade. Duolingo right there, 293. That's down 1.5%. Snowflake, 231. That's down 2.8. American Airlines, that's flat. JetBlue, that's still green. S&P, 639. Getting to 640 would be aggressive psychologically. We did touch it, 640.14. We were not able to hold those levels. Guys, Chris is still on vacation. He'll be back on hopefully later this week. But he got to visit Iceland because his wife set him up on a surprise birthday trip. So I think he's still in Iceland. Maybe he came back over the weekend. No, I think he was there for he left on Friday. So I'm pretty sure he's still there. But yeah, he'll be coming back probably later mid this week. And then we'll hear from Chris. Open Door right here. That's up 4%. Bitmine, that's up 1%. Iran, that's up 7.45. And then Oklo, that's down 2.2%. Fubo, that's probably getting some momentum on the Disney merger. That's up 5.25% as well. That is grand. And UNH, although it's not red, or although it's not super green, it's also not super red. It's basically flat, 309.75. Now, the Buffett endorsement was enough to get this bad boy from 270 to 310. It hasn't really taken it further. By the way, Buffett turned 95 on Saturday. So shout out to Mr. Warren Buffett. We talked about this on Friday, but Kraft Heinz is now going to be splitting up into two separate companies. This was Buffett's self-admitted not best moments in the equity markets in terms of what they thought they could do with Kraft Heinz. This owns a lot of the brands that people are familiar with. Oscar, Kraft Mac and Cheese, all that stuff. But they're going to be separating into two different companies. So we'll see what that looks like. Basically reversing the 2015 merger. That stock right here down about 2.5%. Buffett still owns, I believe, I'll make the exact number, but 34 million shares of Kraft Heinz. And so he still does have a decent position in that company. They own, 325 million shares, not 35 million shares. So $8.4 billion stake, still a decent chunk in Kraft Heinz. His home builder trade will be much worse. Well, I think there's a lot of mixed signals on that. Obviously, rates coming down could be bullish for unlocking the housing market. But as Steve was talking about last night, 25 bips is not going to do that much for the housing market. I mean, you need a minimum of 75 to 100 bips to really unlock the supply and demand dynamics that would increase supply and also increase demand at the same time and potentially get these houses to come down. But Sen did say over the weekend that Trump is looking into declaring a state of emergency on housing that would make things more affordable. So the quote was, "We may declare a national housing emergency in the fall." And the idea of that would be to put an emphasis on home prices coming down. I don't know exactly what mechanisms they would use to do that. But if they do, maybe that could be good for the home builders. But that would be something that the Trump administration is looking into. GameStop right here, that's up about 1.2%. Tesla still down about 1%. SoFi, $24.95, just below 25. And then NVIDIA trying to hold 170. Stop BlackRock from buying houses. So that's what Steve mentioned yesterday, but we did some quick searches, and BlackRock and Blackstone don't own that many houses in the United States. I know in 2021, 2022, that was a big issue, and yes, I think they should not be able to buy a single house if they even have any houses that they're buying, because obviously that would make it less competitive for the average family of four. But it's not like they own 50% of the housing supply, right? So it's I don't know if Trump were to pass some legislation like that, would that really make that much of a difference? It seems like this is more a question of rates and, the overall sentiment around people wanting to sell their home and realizing that they would have to get a 7% mortgage if they sell their home. So they'd rather just not. And that comes down to hopefully more rate cuts. It's small investors that hold a lot. Yeah. I mean, put in the chat if you actually never asked this question. It's a good question. Put in the chat if you own at least one investment property, even if it's the property that you live in, but you're house hacking, right? Put in the chat if you actually own or in the process of buying, or you have a mortgage on an investment property, because there's a lot of average Americans that have been able to build wealth through real estate, and they took out loans, they did what they had to do, they partnered with family friends. Like my dad and his brother, aka my uncle, worked together in 2008 to buy their first investment property. So now that's not the institutional level of BlackRock or Blackstone, but still, that is a decent chunk of people that have created wealth. So you can't create a regulation that would stop the average person from buying an investment property, right? just to free up housing supply. That wouldn't make that much sense. Wow, there's a decent amount of real estate investors here in the chat. Holy crap. Okay, let me do a poll on this because I think that would give us a better glimpse of this. Dude, some of you own 10 rental properties? Good. All right, so now I know where you get all this money to buy stocks. You just freaking take all that rental income and you just plow it into the markets. Goodness gracious. I did not know we had these many real estate investors here. Okay, let me do the poll. So it's just simple yes or no. Do you own an investment property? So even if you own one piece of land that you are generating an ROI on, whether through rent income or whatever it may be, just a yes or no. Let's see. Robinhood right here at 100, Tesla 330, Nvidia 170, Walmart 97, SoFi 24.95. Markets relatively flattening out. Palantir $1 away from going green. Palantir having one of the better recoveries from a lot of these high beta growth names. S&P is still stuck at around 639.22. Rufus says, I just sold our only rental, sold for a small loss last week, bought in 2021. Med Money has 10 rental properties. Matthias says, my boomer landlord owns 5 multifamily homes on my block. Wow, it's 50-50, 51-49. 51-49 on if you own an investment property in this chat. Raul has 3 of them. Vanessa has 5 of them. Zocold had 3. He sold all of them. Toto has 1. Fritz says, I have several. Paul says yes. Peggy says, I have 5. Chad says, I have multiple money pits. Chad just has a ton of land. And he is monetizing, or hopefully will eventually monetize that land. You know, the one thing that Chad did say when I had that poster on, would you rather have the S&P 500 or the stock market, is land. Even if it's not a rental property, one thing that he likes is just owning more land, because, you know, the saying goes, you're not getting any more land created on this planet unless AI somehow figures that out. But land is one of the more scarce resources on the planet, right? And so just having that land, inevitably there will be a way to monetize it if you do get the ownership over it. I ran right here, that's up 8% on the day. Bitmine up 1%, Opendoor up 7%. I mean, freaking Opendoor. On a day, the S&P 500 is down 1%, Opendoor is up 7%. That is quite incredible to see that divergence. UNH going green as well at 311.40, which is not too bad. Elaine says, I bought Palantir in 2022, sold homes in Hawaii. I'm way ahead now. Well, see, some of you guys, I've heard the story many times. You sold your properties in 2022. A couple people I know refinanced their properties in 2022, refinanced their mortgages, and they bought a lot of Palantir. Now, you could have bought anything in 2022. Obviously, Palantir has done very well from $6, but 2022, if you were able to get some income from any perspective and plow it into the markets, whether it's Nvidia, Tesla, anything, it's done very, very well. So definitely some smart decisions back then. But I would imagine it was probably a little scary as well, because, you know, what if the market ended up becoming some great financial crisis and 2022 was just the beginning to a multi-year downtrend? But that didn't end up happening. So for those that took the risk, I mean, done very, very well. Pulte just tweeted, oh boy, speaking of housing, what is the director of Fannie and Freddie saying right now? Wow, big news on Lisa Cook just received. Okay, so these guys are obviously trying to fire Lisa Cook as soon as they can. Pulte says, big news on Lisa Cook just received. He tweeted that 9 minutes ago. I mean, look, if they fire her, they're going to have more people voting for the rate cut. The question is, will they be able to actually get it done? Now, if she committed mortgage fraud and it goes to the Supreme Court, I think Trump's Supreme Court is going to side with him and said, hey, the woman committed mortgage fraud. She does not deserve to be in a position of power. She should be fired. The Fed's argument is like, well, Trump technically doesn't have authority and she's not technically guilty yet. Now, I think the Fed would say, okay, if she's actually guilty, they're not going to fight Trump on it. But comes down to, is she guilty or not? And I think in the next like 2 weeks, we should find out if she's guilty. This should not take too long to adjudicate. And Trump might get a Fed seat that opens up in the next couple weeks. So we are going to see, where is Ethereum? Is that making a move? 43.42. Solana, that's up a little bit as well. CrowdStrike, that's down 2.9%. They had a good earnings last week. Affirm had a great earnings. They're getting hit, down 6%. Again, does Affirm deserve to be down 7% after those earnings? No, but is its multiple compressing because of the general market being a little bit risk off? Yes. And that asks a question around, hey, do I buy the dip on multiples that are compressing with good earnings? Or do I get afraid that the earnings are going to compress with the multiples? And if the earnings are not going to compress, even though the multiples are, that's an obvious buy the dip. Because when they put up a good Q3, those multiples will be back to normal. And those multiples should recover given the earnings are good. So it's just a question of, do you believe these earnings are going to disappoint in Q3? And I think that would keep people away from buying the dip versus leaning into it. Grab trying to recover as well. That was at 484. Now it's at 493. Figma still down 5% of the day. And MicroStrategy going green at 341. 50%, 55% now. All right, so we got some more votes. 45% of you guys own an investment property. 56% say no. Okay, so let me ask another question here. Let's do this one. Do you own multiple investment properties? So now it's more than one. Let's see what it looks like here. I'm gonna guess like 20-80. 20% of you guys own multiple, so at least two. 80% own less than two, even if you own one. But it is a decent amount of people. I didn't know we had these many real estate investors. Wow, 35-65. That's even more than I expected, huh? A lot of people here are older as well, and as you get older, you know, the ability to acquire property becomes a bit easier as you have more disposable income. But still, dude, I mean, like, there's not a lot of Americans that can say they own more than one investment property. I mean, most Americans don't even own one investment property. So that's something to be very proud about. Owning two or more than one investment property, like, that's not easy, dude. And I know it's not necessarily passive income because you probably got to put up with a lot of stuff from tenants. But if you hire a property manager and you're able to be a little bit more hands off, I mean, definitely is a nice source of income to have. Netflix right here going green, Ulta going green, UNH going green, 312. UNH I thought would go green. It's going green. Palantir very close to going green, 80 cents away. And then the S&P, are we getting any momentum above 640? Robinhood now below 100 again. S&P 638. 638.90 to 639. Maybe that's where it levels out for the rest of the day. Yeah, very few in the US even own their own house. I own a 12-year-old child that's basically the same cost as a house. That is fair. Again, the market is just more liquid, right? If I said who owns multiple stocks here, it would be 100% of people, right? Because it's a liquid market. You only need a couple bucks to get into it. But properties and real estate is harder. There's a lot more CapEx. You need a lot more money to get started. And I know there's technically a lot of loopholes with the down payments and FHA loans and all that stuff. And if you're in the weeds of that, good for you, right? Because you just understand that stuff is complicated to understand, and it takes some time to get into it. Just like selling options is complicated to understand, but if you get into it, it's not the most complicated thing in the world. But I think a mixture of real estate and the equity markets is definitely very rewarding for a lot of people that are into it. Let's listen to another clip that I wanted to show right here, and then we'll go a little bit deeper. So this is someone who is in geopolitical relations, talking about India, China, and Russia. Obviously, there's been a lot of controversy around what the heck's going on with India. Trump did tweet over the weekend that India threatened, or not threatened, but they offered to get rid of a lot of their tariffs. India has not necessarily confirmed that. So let's get a little bit of an update on this, and then we'll keep going from there. An India trade deal, I think, would be super bullish. I don't know if that's going to happen, but India is definitely acting like they're not ready to give any of that momentum. Oh, Palantir going green. Wow. Palantir going, I had a feeling it was very close to going green. Robinhood back above 100. There you go. Palantir 156.50 going green on the day. Not too bad. Not too bad to see some of this recovery.
Is this a signal to Trump that we're playing a different game? And does Trump look at this and say, okay, this is a problem for me, or not?
Yeah, it's a signal that we're not going to bend over backwards, that we're not going to get scared and come rushing to offer up deals if you tell us that you're hitting us with 50% tariffs. The real issue is if we are thinking about India as a potential alternative to China for our supply chains, which, by the way, is, I think, questionable, and we should really think through that.
Questionable meaning we shouldn't.
We should be careful about not thinking of India as a total replacement for China, because that is creating the same problem all over again. We cannot just say, here's another country, we're going to dump all our supply chains there. And I say that because there are people on the Hill, there are people in DC who actually believe that.
And your view is you need to spread it around, or we just need to bring everything back, or what?
So critical things like pharmaceuticals, et cetera, we need to have them, I think, as close to home, if not at home, as possible. Others, yes, have to be spread around. We just can't keep going down that road of picking the next China and thinking they're going to be our allies. They will be standing with us, no matter, come hell or high water, because that's just not how it works. It was made very clear to us this weekend.
Okay, the implication of India, if India were to stop taking Russian oil, what would it do to the Indian economy? What would it do to the rest of, by the way, Europe and everything else? Like, what does it give us the full sort of picture?
So both China and India have been excessively reliant on Russian oil. And of course, we've talked about this before, Iranian oil as well, right? So I think that's, you're talking about them having to spend potentially a lot more money. They're getting this stuff for very cheap, from what I understand. They're buying it illegally oftentimes as well. I think that creates serious, pressures to them domestically, whether it's on the inflation front, whether it's on, profitability of their companies, et cetera, et cetera. These are growing economies. I don't think they do that. I don't think they can afford to do that.
If you're India or China and you watch this court situation over the tariffs play out, what is the play? We keep talking about this game of chicken that everyone can play with each other.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. The UK, France, everybody else says, okay, we'll go along with this. These other guys say no. Yeah. Now the courts have actually it's cutting the right way for them, at least temporarily. What happens next?
So I think the playbook for these countries is not too dissimilar from the playbook that a lot of American companies are following right now, which is that the tariff regime is not permanent. It's not here to stay. That's at least the assumption. I think the court ruling plays into that. I think there's a thinking that a future president can be convinced to roll back or move away from.
Can I push back on that, though? Taking the courts out of it, assuming that it's legal, if it's allowed, it seems to me, maybe I'm wrong, that once you start raising big numbers in terms of revenue annually, $200 billion, $300 billion, whatever this number is, and you've heard the Treasury Secretary talk about it, to me, it almost becomes generational. Because if you are in Congress and you have a budget and all of a sudden there's $200 or $300 billion in a pot, and you have to raise your hand and say, you know what, actually, I don't like collecting that money anymore, and I don't want that money.
Yeah.
Then you have a whole new problem. So nobody's going to want to turn around and say they don't want it, if in fact the courts rule that it's okay.
Yes, I agree. I think mostly with you. We saw that, right? President Biden never rolled back Trump tariffs. As a matter of fact, he wanted additional tariffs. That stays. I think the core question then becomes what happens to the inflation picture, right? What happens to prices being passed along to consumers, et cetera? That's where it gets a little bit more complicated.
So you believe it is?
And so the interesting thing about this right here is like the tariff stuff is not having the biggest impact on inflation yet, as per a lot of the metrics that we've seen. Now, PPI is one of the bigger impacts, but we've got to see really top line inflation get above 3%. Right now, we're at 2.7. If that doesn't have that big of an impact, and the courts, that some U.S. appeals court on Friday tried to say the tariffs are illegal, I mean, that's going to go to the Supreme Court. If it actually gets challenged, and it's going to end up going in Trump's favor. So that's not that big of a deal. If it doesn't have the inflationary pressures that some of the economists are projecting, and it actually puts India in a tougher situation, because India realizes that the U.S., although they're trying to play hardball with the U.S. is not going to give up on these tariffs. Definitely not because some district appeal court said that they need to give up on it. That means eventually there will be some capitulation. Now, what capitulation will that look like? I don't know. India so far has not capitulated. Russia, China have been playing hardball as well. But it does mean that India is saying, hey, you can't just mess around with us and bully us into paying some tariffs. And hopefully, that leads to some level of a deal that is suitable for both sides. But I think it will take a couple more months to see how that plays out. Elaine says, I started out the day down 500,000. Now I'm up 3,000. There you go. It's been quite an interesting. I don't want to say full recovery yet, because we haven't fully recovered, but it's just not as bad as it was in the morning. Palantir 157. There she goes. 157. The dip buyers stepped in at 152. At 152. I mean, this is pretty incredible that Palantir, Iran's almost at $30, bro, up 10%. Like, these are names that should be getting hit badly on a red day. And they did for a couple minutes, but they're the biggest leaders of the recovery. Bitmine not really holding its gains, kind of staying flat around 43.80. Robinhood as well, not really holding its recovery down below 100, but it's not as bad as it was in the morning. Pepsi right here, also down 2% or up 2%. It was up 5% after the Elliott investment stake. SoFi back above 25. Pepsi is now up 2%. Again, markets relatively even across the board. As you can see, healthcare is getting a little bit of green, industrial is getting a little bit of green, but pretty much everything is still red. So it's not a full-on recovery to bright green, but it's not as bad as it was before. Opendoor as well, up 7%. I mean, again, this is high beta. It probably shouldn't be up 7% when the S&P is down 1%, but you can see some of that money rushing towards buying the dip on the names that they got hit the hardest at 9:30. Is there a real risk with stagflation? I think gold and silver is signaling there's a real risk with stagflation, but again, we haven't actually seen stagflation. Like, the expectation of cutting rates into what is close to 3% inflation could be the argument for gold, silver, and commodities for catching a bid. I just don't think you sell off equities if that's the case, because if you do have some level of stagflationary growth, the question is, that's actually a bull case for growth stocks, right? Like, what is growing 30, 40, 50% enough to withstand a stagflationary environment? It's not Verizon. It's not Pepsi. Probably Palantir, probably Robinhood, probably NVIDIA. Now, granted, if those stagflationary impacts have actual problems with the structure of the economy and that hurts those businesses, then they're not going to be able to grow at the levels that they need to grow at. But the fear of stagflation definitely is a bull case for gold and silver. I don't think it's the biggest bear case for Bitcoin, for example. I mean, if anything, you'd buy more Bitcoin if there's stagflation because you're afraid, right? And you want something to store your value. You buy Ethereum, you buy crypto thing, you buy assets that are rooted in something that is not as subject to the whims of inflation. That's more digital gold, as the Bitcoin maxis would say. And so I the fear of stagflation to me, I don't know if that's enough to crack the markets. But we got to see. We got a long month, and we got to see how this ends up playing out. Some of the data center plays, they are green and red. Iran is green. CoreWeave's down. Bloom's down. Celestica's down. Wolf is up. Cypher, Wolf, and Iran are the only green out of all the data center plays. That is hilarious. The three previous Bitcoin miners are now all green. Nebius is down. GE Veranova, that's down 6%. That one's taking a hit. VRT, VST is down. Oklo's down. Nanonuclear is down. And CoreWeave's down. The other ones are green. I still don't know why that representative bought the ski dog mask thing, but that's another thing we have to take into account. By the way, this Trump Space Command HQ, I mean, that should be kind of bullish Rocket Lab, right? Theoretically, I feel like that should be bullish some of the space names, Rocket Lab, ASTS, etc. I don't know if any of them would be announced, but we're going to see what ends up being said at 2 p.m. Pulte, did we get another tweet from Pulte? We did get a tweet. Oh, wow. He posted video proof. We have just received video proof that Lisa Cook's declared primary residence is being rented out to tenants. Cook recently claimed to the U.S. government that it was her personal residence, but she's renting it out. Okay, I don't know what this video is going to be like, but let's play this video.
Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook has 3 homes and big troubles. She claimed to the banks that she lived at all of them, but real estate records show she listed 2 of them for rent. That's not legal. So Lisa must be living here in Ann Arbor at the 3rd house.
Dude, why is this so cringe, bro? Like, why? Like, this is so cringe.
Right? The door's dirty. There's a key lockbox right there. There's a white man at the dining room table. It's weird. I don't think she's married. Hello? How you doing? Okay, how are you? I'm good. My name's Charlie. I'm a reporter. This house is in the news. I was wondering if Lisa Cook lives here, or do you rent?
Yeah, we're just renters, so we'll have to.
I'm sorry?
We'll have to talk to the owner.
Okay, you just living here?
Yeah.
Okay, just renting?
No.
I'm sorry?
We'll have to talk to the owner.
Okay, the owner, would you have a contact number?
Okay, so apparently this video is what Pulte's using. The journalist's name is Charlie Duff. I've never heard of the journalist before, but they visited a quote-unquote primary residence. It's being rented out, and that is enough for the argument to be made that she is committing mortgage fraud. I mean, look, on first look, just from looking at that video, yeah, if that thing is being rented out and it's being claimed as a primary residence, then they have an argument against her. I mean, that's just, I don't think you need to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. I don't know. We're going to see how Lisa Cook responds to this. At the end of the day, you cannot claim rented out residences to tenants as a primary residence. But I guess we're going to see how that ends up playing out. It is a very cringe. Dude, the director of federal housing is reposting this stuff. But then again, this is Trump's government. You know, they've embraced social media in a very, very unique way compared to the Biden administration. Yeah, I mean, look, if that's the case, then that's the case. It looks like there will be some level of action being taken on this. And if it gets to the Supreme Court, again, Trump has picked how many justices? He has Gorsuch, he has Kavanaugh, and he has one more. The lady whose name I'm forgetting. It's like Amy or something. But he has 3 out of the 9. And there's a couple other that are conservative. I mean, that you might end up getting it going his way. Yeah, Barrett. So there you go. Gavin Newsom announces he will be launching a meme coin called Trump Corruption Coin. No way, bro. No freaking way. Why are all these representatives getting into coins? This has to be a joke. Oh, there's a video of it. Okay, I'm assuming it's a joke. There's no way this is real. I really hope this is not real.
You know, and if you want a real prediction, I know we talked about the Taylor Swift prediction. The real prediction is, we're about to put a meme coin out, and you know what, Donald Trump, we'll see how well your coin does versus our coin. I mean, we're just trying to turn up the heat and trying to tune people into the absurdity.
Is it going to be called Gavin coin?
No, I think Trump Corruption Coin.
Okay, that sounds like a joke to me. I would hope that's a joke, bro. I really hope that what's not a joke is Representative Collins buying 15,000 of Ski Mask Dog, but I would hope that is a joke. That's actually a really good Twitter account that has 1 million followers. The way they posted it is seeming like it's a real headline. That's got to be a joke, right? Like you got to put like a laughing emoji on this to make people realize he's being sarcastic here. If it's not a joke, then we are literally entering the 4th dimension if that's playing out, but I would hope it is a joke. All right, so that's what we got in the context of what's going on with some of this meme coin stuff. Again, the ski mask dog thing, that is real. The housing administration, it looks like we're going to get a lot more updates on if Lisa Cook will be fired. And if she is fired, I think Trump's going to have 3 people that are on his side right now. Bowman and Waller are on his side. I think he has a couple others that are getting close to the idea that we need multiple rate cuts. Stephen Moran, he's replacing the person who just retired the other day, so he's gonna have 3. If he gets Lisa Cook's seat, he will have 4 people officially that he can point to vote for cutting rates and potentially have the majority that is needed to actually get rate cuts done. Let's get a little bit of coverage on the Pepsi Elliott stuff from the activist stake they took today, and then we'll keep going from there.
PepsiCo shares are rallying today. I've confirmed that activist investor Elliott Management has built a roughly $4 billion stake in the company. The stake would make it one of PepsiCo's top 5 active investors and one of Elliott's largest equity stakes ever. PepsiCo just telling me this morning, quote, PepsiCo maintains an active and productive dialogue with our shareholders and values constructive input on delivering long-term shareholder value. We note Elliott Investment Management's disclosure of its presentation and will review its perspectives within the context of our strategy to drive sustainable growth. And then they go on to say that strategy includes targeted investments in innovation, portfolio transformation, international growth, as well as corporate-wide multi-year productivity initiatives. We are confident that the successful execution of these initiatives positions PepsiCo to accelerate growth, strengthen our competitive advantage, and deliver meaningful long-term value for our shareholders. So not much there. Look, I mean, it's clear that these two are talking. There's a dialogue there. And Elliott did put out about a 75-page white paper that I've started to go through. A lot of the recommendations, first of all, one big question was, are they recommending a split of the beverage and the snacks business? I don't see that in this initial public disclosure, at least, both the letter to the board and also in this white paper. They recommend specific fixes, say that a lot of the problems for the underperformance and the financial performance of PepsiCo are within their reach, basically their self-help story, and that they can fix them. For example, PepsiCo North America, they recommend, interestingly, a lot of strategies that Coca-Cola, their rival, has done. The bottlers, for instance, the bottlers was that's something that's Pepsi's been under pressure for a long time to try to do that, to sort of get rid of the bottlers in the system, to also sort of focus and narrow down the portfolio in terms of SKUs and products, something a lot of the consumer packaged good companies have done to great success. Maybe Kraft Heinz problematically had too complex of a portfolio.
I feel like that's a reasonable thing for Elliott to do, is say, hey, Pepsi, you have too many brands. We need to kind of change the brand outlook that you have and double down on the stuff that's working. Rocket Lab, by the way, look at that recovery from 45 to 48.40. Not too bad. If Trump says anything about the Space Command Center that potentially could be interpreted as bullish for Rocket Lab or ASTS, that would be great for them. But that stock right here basically going green on the day. ASTS is green, up 1.5%. But Elliott targeting Pepsi, to me, just feels like they're bored. I mean, they go after very high-profile activist investor cases. Pepsi just seems boring. You know, it's not like Pepsi's some distressed business that's been doing horrible, which is usually what Elliott goes after. So I am curious to see their presentation and see what they're trying to do. Pepsi is up about 1% year to date. It's down 15% for the past year. It's up 10% for the past 5 years. Maybe Elliott's thinking there's a lot more juice you can get out of this 4% dividend on Pepsi. But we're going to see what they end up doing over the coming 30 days, or realistically 30 months, since they likely have a stake for a long time. Okay, so Rocket Lab getting a little bit of recovery. Elliott's doing the same thing they did with HPE. They were able to place someone inside the board of HPE. So they always try to go for a board seat. What was the company that did Elliott try to do this with Meta? Someone tried to take a stake in Meta a while ago. It was either Elliott or it was someone else. But yeah, Elliott took a stake in Hewlett-Packard back in April. There's another one that tried to do something with Meta. I don't think it was Elliott, but they always try to go for a board seat. That's when they get like some real level of control. I don't know if they can easily get a board seated inside of Pepsi. Disney. Oh yes, you're right. Disney. They tried to do it with Disney. That's correct. Yeah, that one ended up not necessarily working out. Bob Iger was not happy with that one. But you also have to do it with a CEO who doesn't have as much political sway, right? Like some activist investor trying to mess with Elon and take a stake in Tesla. It's like, you're just not going to have the public on your side. You're not going to have the shareholder base on your side. So you need to do it with a company that's like not as exciting, at least from a CEO perspective, and that has had horrible execution. And that's when they tend to at least have a better chance of getting that board seat. AMD right here, 161. NVIDIA back below 170. So NVIDIA not able to hold the 170s. S&P still down less than 1% on the day, but it is down from 639.50. Now it's 638.80. So you're seeing maybe a little bit of consolidation in that range potentially, which would not be the worst thing in the world. Google right here, 208.81. That's flat. Robinhood below 100, and Palantir still holding up green. Bitcoin in the midst of all this volatility, Bitcoin is holding up 111.5 on Bitcoin. I mean, you would think it wouldn't kind of maintain momentum. I think the narrative has changed a little bit. Bitcoin, instead of being seen as purely high beta that functions off liquidity, legitimately it's being seen as a counter-cyclical hedge against money printing and people potentially buying it in the face of turmoil and chaos versus selling it off. Now, granted, we haven't seen any real turmoil. 1% down on the S&P is nothing. If we were to get 5-7% down, I would wonder how Bitcoin performs. But even with Iran, Israel, when everything was breaking out, Bitcoin was fine. It was not breaking down at all. So now we're going to have to see how this plays out. We were talking about this last night. We have seen a lot of Bitcoin wallets that have started to swap their Bitcoin for Ethereum. Like I've seen 5 screenshots over the weekend, because all of this stuff is public with the wallet addresses, of whales that are selling some of their Bitcoin. This guy sold 200 million of Bitcoin, and then he bought Ethereum, and they're transitioning. So I don't think that's a bear case for Bitcoin, but it does mean there is some more excitement in regards to Ethereum. We have some news on Amazon. Amazon's US Prime signups slowed this year despite stretching Prime Day deals to 4 days. The company touted record sales, but sign-up momentum lagged. I don't think this is bearish Amazon. I just think everyone uses Prime. I mean, it's getting to the point where I would imagine their market is getting pretty saturated. And so, yeah, they're not going to have the same type of signups they had 5 years ago. But I think it's something like 180 million Americans have Prime. How many Americans have Amazon Prime? It's like 160 to 180, 196 million. That's like, yeah, there's 330 million people. Half of those are adults. You got a decent chunk of them with 196 million. So I wouldn't say that's bearish Amazon, but that is one of the headlines we had this morning. And then Raymond James, here's what they said about the S&P 500 today. They warned the U.S. equity rally driven by strong earnings, lower yields, and subdued oil prices will be tested in the coming weeks. Risks include geopolitical tensions, new jobs data, and bond market reactions to a court ruling on Trump-era tariffs. The firm also flagged fading momentum in AI stocks, citing concerns over weak new models and stalled projects, though cloud spending remains strong. It expects mid and small cap earnings growth to pick up in late 2025, but cautions similar optimism a year ago didn't pan out. Again, that comes down to Q3 earnings, and if we're able to maintain the level of momentum that we've seen, especially in the data center build out phase, which based on all the CapEx we've seen from the hyperscalers, it doesn't look like that's slowing down. But that is one of the things I think investors will really care about going into Q3. In other words, nothing new. Exactly. In other words, nothing new. Now, Evercore did come out and they raised their price target to 7,500 on the S&P 500 by mid 2026. And essentially their argument was rate cuts. Rate cuts are going to be one of the key factors. So this is what they said yesterday. This is Julian Emanuel. He said, the risk of a bubble that could see the S&P 500 rise to 9,000 in 2026 is increased by a Fed, which could overstimulate an economy by battling a pandemic echo and now tariff echo inflation. Putting the internet revolution and AI revolution in context, the cyclical bear markets both had a result of exogenous influences, and the speed of the non-recession bear market recovery on the roller coaster to new highs suggests that the average expected rally in 2025 to 2026 is an additional 18 months with a gain of 21% or 26%, hence 7,750 at the end of the year in 2026. That would be quite aggressive. Now, granted, I wonder if the bubble that people are talking about could legitimately become a bubble if the S&P 500 were to inflate to such a degree because of low rates, which is what we had in 2021, and then inflation picks up towards the end of 2026, maybe above 3.5%, which again would not be the best thing in the world for risk on assets, but that could lead to an actual bubble being popped. Like, I don't think there's an AI bubble, but I think if rates come down as dramatically as Trump wants them to, and money can only go into risk on assets, then yeah, a bubble could form, just like 2021. But in the midst of that, you kind of want to be exposed to risk on assets, right? Like you still want to have exposure to that. But 9,000 on the S&P,
at the hint of a potential bubble. I mean, that would be quite wild to see. Here is some updates on the consumer. The McDonald's CEO was live today. Here's what he had to say about some of the steps they're making for changes in consumer activity, and then we'll keep going from there as well. In terms of Hood S&P 500, I'm going to say they don't get in on Friday. I'll be live from the airport. I'll be traveling tomorrow. There will be no market close tomorrow. There will be a market open. No market close, but we'll be live again on Friday for the market close. And I want to say Hood gets in, but I think they're not if they already picked IBKR and Block. So not getting my hopes up, but it would be exciting to see them get in.
And we're also getting more color around the consumer. We heard, for instance, from the McDonald's CEO this morning on Squawk Box. Listen to what he said.
If you're upper income, earning over $100,000, things are good. Stock markets are near all-time highs. You're feeling, quite confident about things. You're seeing international travel. All those barometers of upper income consumers are doing quite well. What we see with middle and lower income consumers is actually a different story. It's that consumers under a lot of pressure. In our industry, traffic for lower income consumers is down double digits. And it's because people are either choosing to skip a meal. So we're seeing breakfast. People are actually skipping breakfast, or they're choosing to just eat at home.
So McDonald's, which is supposed to be one of the most affordable ways to eat in this country, you got the CEO saying, yeah, if you are lower income, we are seeing that activity start to go down as people are becoming a lot more conscious about the amount of money they spend on food.
There's that bifurcated consumer again. Pressure on the low income, high income's doing okay, tied to the stock market and income growth. That's definitely been a common refrain this earnings season. While overall consumers holding up relatively well, there's a split, of course, across the spectrum.
Yeah, a lot of work over the weekend about real consumption, and we got some GDP revisions last week. It's running about less than half of the 2024 pace. That's consumption adjusted for inflation, but obviously we're watching. I think there's elements of even the Secretary of the Treasury has said if you don't have assets, it's a time of pressure to some degree.
Right, and also they're looking a lot at the housing market, potentially what they can do there. We also heard from Signet on earnings this morning, and they saw growth in same-store sales. This is the big jewelry company. Good quarter from the call. We see our customer willing to spend as long as the assortment is compelling and delivers on their expectations of value. There's that value word again. It's very frequent this earnings season. We believe our assortment is well positioned to deliver against that backdrop. I think lab-grown diamonds are a big driver in general of jewelry right now. And then Constellation, I mean, tough if you're in the beer business. Over the last few months.
So this earnings was interesting. We looked at a study 2 weeks ago by the Financial Times that it was some ridiculous. It was like 90% of Americans have cited that they are starting to consume less alcohol. Constellation owns a decent chunk of alcohol brands. They are also seeing some weakness as people in general just aren't drinking as much.
High-end beer rates decelerated sequentially as both trip frequency and spend per ticket declined. Notably, high-end beer buy rate declines for Hispanic consumers were more pronounced. Remember, that's another theme than general market declines, which has an outsized impact on our beer business compared to the broader beer category. So besides the, value-seeking behavior, low-income versus high-income consumer, Hispanic consumer weakness has been a thread in a lot of earnings reports and a lot of commentary from companies on just concerns about going out around some of the immigration crackdown from the administration.
I think it's the first time Constellation has referenced that particular dynamic, is it?
No, I mean, because they rely heavily on the Hispanic consumer, and so they've seen that, but clearly that was a theme this quarter and in general.
So, I mean, you're seeing a lot of different consumer variations for what's going on in regards to whether it's McDonald's or alcohol. And again, I don't think that's kind of structural. I think that's also something that is a sign of the times. I mean, like, yes, people are not drinking as much alcohol. That's going to affect Constellation. But also, there's this whole Ozempic movement that's going on around weight loss. And so do I think that is the overbearing argument for why McDonald's is seeing less traffic? No, I think it's probably a little bit more about what you guys said in the chat, that Egg McMuffin is $8 now, which is ridiculous. But there also are a lot more people that are like, dude, I just don't want to go eat that shit anymore. Especially if I'm trying to lose weight, or especially if I'm, taking drugs to lose weight as well. So I think there is a different renaissance of cultural things that are happening in the country. But nonetheless, from a pure economic perspective, not the best to see McDonald's not have that foot traffic anymore. McDonald's right here slightly up on the day. And although McDonald's is pitched as a defensive, you got to see if things really do get bad, is it as defensive as some people think? Ethereum right there, 43.50. Where's the S&P? Are we going back red? All right, 1.19%, not as bad as it was at 9:30, but you are seeing some red candles on the S&P. Palantir is still holding a little bit of green. I mean, it just went red, very slightly red, up from 150 or down from 157. Hoodie back down, flow 5%. Hoodie has been kind of stuck all day. Not really moving up or not really moving up from its down. So that one stays at 5%. NVIDIA just holding 169, Tesla 331. BABA was green last night. BABA continues to be green, 137. They had a great earnings. That one holding on to its momentum. Last time it hit 140 was March. Last time before that was 2021. So kind of back to those 4-year highs. Weeble's down 4%. Affirm's down 5%. Rocket Lab's now down 2%. Oracle's down 1%. We'll see if we get below those 932 lows, which for Palantir would be 150. For the S&P would be 636. For Bitmine would be 42. For Robinhood would be 97. For NVIDIA would be 168.65. So we still have a little bit lower to go to see if we get back to those 930 red candles we saw. Nothing is defensive during stagflation. Yeah, I mean, I guess gold is the only thing that people start getting really excited about, which is why gold. Wow, gold can. All right, so this is the divergence I was kind of waiting to see, and we didn't see it, but gold's going up as equities are starting to come back down. Like 20 minutes ago, it was gold and stocks were going up together, which again just kind of felt weird. Gold, new all-time highs is what we're looking at. 35.69 in the morning. This was 35.55. So you're starting to get some green there. And maybe a bit of more of a sell-off on stocks and people piling into green. Zeta's down 7%. Okay, so that one, again, high beta as well. Retail favorite. This one's getting hit, down 7.3. A lot of those names that don't have a real institutional backing, you might just have retail that's taking profits on it. Nebius as well, down 4% or 5%. Is that one's taking a little bit of a hit. Silver, new highs of the day, 37.01. There you go. Again, this is an 11-year breakout, as you can see on silver. Last time it was at 37 was August 31st of 2011. 11 years later, a little bit more than 11 years, almost to the day, you are at those levels. Last time it got to 48 was 2010. So this was, a year and a half after great financial crisis. There's a lot of fear. That's what spiked silver up. And then you had a bull market for the past 15 years, which is why commodities have not been doing as well ever since 2020, where we had COVID, and that's where commodities caught a bit more of a bid. And now commodities catching a bid as well. It is potentially trying to tell us something. The extent of what it's trying to tell the market, I think we'll find out over the coming weeks. Imagine waiting 11 years for a breakout. Well, the thing about silver is it's not supposed to break out. It's supposed to be your hedge, right? It's supposed to Palantir back to green. It's supposed to be something that you just keep buying for a day where, shit hits the fan. And I don't think S&P basically at all-time highs is shit hitting the fan. But that's the other weird thing, bro. It's like silver and gold are rallying, but the S&P, its highs are 649. We're at 637. It's like we're not back down to 4,800 like we were in April. So it's also very interesting to kind of see the dynamic of equities catching a bid. Ether Machine buys another 150,000 Ethereum for 635 million. Wow. You are getting a lot more Ethereum. ETHZ, that one's down 1% on the day. Ether Machine, 654 million, 150,000 ETH is what they bought. And their ticker is ETHM. That stock is down about 1%. down about 1% here. Yes, we will have Technical Tuesday today. So we did a technical session yesterday. So today is going to be a lot more names. So we're not going to do NVIDIA, Hood, and all the names that we did yesterday. So if anyone wants to see those names, Palantir, Tesla, all the stuff, all the big names, then you can go to yesterday's stream. It's in all the chapters. But today we'll hopefully have time to do a lot more than just the typical names. And we'll diversify a little bit. But yes, we will have Technical Tuesday. Do we have any earnings today? Let me see. Today is what, Tuesday? Zscaler. Looks like we have Zscaler. That's it. So we have some cybersecurity with Zscaler. Tomorrow we have Salesforce. And then Thursday we have Lululemon and Broadcom. So Thursday's a big one. Tomorrow we have Salesforce. Oh, tomorrow we have Figma as well. So those are the ones that we're going to look at tomorrow. Zscaler, 271. Well, not tomorrow because I'll be traveling tomorrow. But so there's 2 more weeks of traveling, guys. There's 2 more weeks of traveling. Tomorrow's an event. You guys will find out what it is on Thursday. And then Vegas, September 9th to the 10th. And then after next week, the traveling is pretty much done. And we should have no issues with disruptions on our schedule. But the next 2 weeks is a little bit more of back and forth. Hopefully we'll have some fun streams, though. I'll be with Tanner and Roy. We'll get to do maybe the market open if they're able to wake up at 5:45 on the West Coast. I don't think they're going to wake up, but maybe we can get them to wake up. So we'll do some fun streams. But yeah, around mid-September, September 15th, we'll get back to normal. And we shouldn't have too much disrupting the schedule. Iran right here, that's up 8.3%. Palantir is still going green. 157.50, even as the S&P falls down about 1.15%. Oh yeah, GitLab has earnings tomorrow. Jose loves this stock, so this one will be an important one. 47.85. We'll take a look at GitLab. Open Door. This one is up on the day. The main headline on Open Door is that their executives are not selling stock anymore, which I think has to be pretty bullish, right? Now, granted, I don't know what that has to do with their gross margins. Again, I'm just not a believer that they're going to be able to fix their gross margins, but I do like that the CEO's buying. He bought like 40,000 shares on the open market, and the executive team has pledged to stop selling. So, I mean, that at least tells me that they are ready to potentially embrace a new future. I just don't think the business model is geared for that yet. But we're going to see. We are going to see. And again, the business model that I've been pitched by a lot of people that are super bullish on it, it just sounds like Zillow. So I'm like, okay, so it's just competing with Zillow at that point. Like, and maybe it's a $3 billion company. Maybe that's enough to get it to be a $20 billion company, become a Zillow competitor. But it's just not the most exciting. Zillow, by the way, is worth $19.8 billion. So like if this thing is going to match Zillow's market cap with none of Zillow's network effects, I mean, maybe. But we're going to have to see. Serve Robotics, this stock is down 8% on the day. Not sure why they're down. Again, Wedbush initiated $15 coverage last week on Serve Robotics. I've been seeing a lot of their robots deliver food recently. I mean, just like tons of them. But they are down 8%. I don't know if there's any big news on the day. I'll try to see. I don't think they had earnings. I think they had earnings 2 weeks ago. But that one is down 8%. Steve just posted his article on Ethereum. He's officially a massive crypto bro. Ethereum could break out well past its all-time highs. There you go. I'll link it in the chat for anyone who wants to read it. Mr. Steven is bullish. What if Zillow buys Open? Yeah, but why would they buy Open Door? Like literally, what do you get from buying Open Door? What assets are you? You're just getting a ton of houses that you can't sell. You're not getting any proprietary technology. I mean, someone please tell me what is so proprietary about a marketplace. Like the only thing proprietary is the network effect, is the ability to connect buyers and sellers. That's what Zillow has been able to figure out. This is also why Zillow left iBuying back in 2021, because they realized there wasn't a business model here. Like every time you talk to someone in Open Door, it's always about the stock. It's never about the company. And to me, that's the biggest red flag. I'm like, I just don't think, okay, like I hope this thing goes to $10, but I cannot be part of the story when I don't understand what the company is going to do to change things. But again, maybe I'm missing a major part of the thesis. I don't get it. I really don't get it. Baba right here still up 1.7. Wow, Pouncer, 158, huh? Dude, Citron has not said something for the past 2 weeks. It's been a minute since Citron updated their short report. So I don't know. We'll see. But this is basically where it was at post-earnings or pre-earnings. We did get rid of that post-earnings move, but holding 158 right here, not too bad for Palantir. Ahmed, have you looked into the realtor referrals? Open is diversifying into higher margin lines of business. If Opendoor becomes a affiliate marketing business for realtors, I don't see what's that exciting about the business. I really don't. Like, by the way, that is Zillow. A lot of realtors pay commissions or they get commissions from operating on the Zillow marketplace. Advertising is their main source of revenue. But like, you can't tell me Opendoor is going to 82, which would be what, around close to $90 billion market cap, because realtors are going to get affiliate deals from connecting buyers and sellers. Like, that just can't be the vision. Even if it's higher margin, I agree with you. Higher margin, great. But like, is it higher margin enough to become a $90 billion company? I just don't see it, bro. I don't see it. I really don't. And I hope to be proven. I hope to be proven wrong. I'm not even just saying that to say that. Like, I hope people make a lot of money on this, and this is a story I miss out, and I'll do a better job with my due diligence in the future. But I don't see this turnaround easily happening. Also, where's the new CEO? They fired the old CEO like 3 weeks ago. They have some interim random dude as the CEO. It's like, where's the inspiring personality that's going to get people to fall in love with Opendoor again? Like, they're taking a lot of time to find that person. Maybe it's because they don't have someone who's willing to step into the mess that is Opendoor. It's not Keith Raboy. I don't think he's coming back to Opendoor. And I think that's a big part of the thesis of just like getting people to be ready to embrace a new evolution of the company. I just don't see it yet. Now, if they become an Ethereum treasury, that would be very bullish. That would be their way to diversify. But we got to see. Yeah, and buying homes 70 cents on the dollar, I don't get it, bro. I really don't get it. And I dude, Eric Jackson did some podcasts over the weekend. I was listening to it again. I'm sorry, I don't get the pitch. I really don't. And every time he was asked about like how AI is going to affect the business or how they're going to transition, his best argument is they're going to cut jobs. I'm like, okay, cool. They're going to cut 1,000 employees. They have 1,400. I don't know if they're going to cut 1,000, but I'll give you, let's say they cut 1,200. They have 200 people left. You will have incremental margin gains, but that is not something that's going to turn the business around. That's cutting off the fat, but that's not changing the structural lack of margins in the business. And no Opendoor person I've heard speak about this has any analysis on how that changes. Which is why I'm just like, all right, I don't see it. Have you heard of Blockbuster? I mean, maybe that's the route. Maybe that is the route for Opendoor. I think they're inside of Silicon Valley enough, and there's enough people that are excited about the stock for there to be a turnaround. But genuinely, the structural antagonism that is inside of the business in relationship to becoming profitable. They did $21 billion of revenue in 2021. They didn't make a single dollar of profits. I was like, oh, rates are going to come down. They're going to sell more houses. Okay, they're going to have a lot more volumes. None of that's going down to the bottom line because they can't make a margin. Because it's really hard to make a margin in real estate. So, I don't know. Just very hard to look at this one. Sanjay, thank you for the $20 super chat. Congrats on the new home. Green background to the fake bricks, to the new fake bricks. Singapore meetup in 2026. Let's go. Yes, hopefully we'll be doing Singapore in July of 2026. Excited about that. Working out some details as we speak. But it looks like that one will happen. And I don't know what you're talking about with fake bricks. I mean, literally, I spent 48 hours on Saturday and Sunday installing these bricks hand by hand, step by step. Does that look fake to you, bro? You freaking feel the freaking bricks, bro. I don't know what you guys are talking about. So it's real. Okay, the Figure IPO that you guys are referencing on Robinhood, this is not Figure, the robot company. This is Figure Technology Solutions. From my understanding, that is not the robot company. Figure Technology Solutions is a different company. Figure AI, yeah, this is a financial services company. This is a lending company. So yeah, blockchain lending. I don't think the robotics company is going public anytime soon. They also don't need to go to public. They just raised $1.5 billion, so it kind of wouldn't make any sense. I have done no due diligence on Figure lending, but it looks like you can collateralize your Bitcoin and get a loan, and that's their business. The fake brick wallpaper is not even aligned properly. First of all, I don't know how many of you guys actually work with your hands, okay? Coming from someone who actually goes to Home Depot and like goes to the section where you have to like buy shit with your hands, okay? It's not easy to line up bricks. So first of all, saying it's misaligned is just disrespectful. Second of all, have you ever aligned 700 bricks? If you haven't, I just wouldn't talk shit. I just wouldn't talk shit. Because as a real man who goes to Home Depot and Lowe's on Sundays, I have. And it's not easy, okay? You bought those from Amazon? No, I did not buy those from Amazon. I bought those from Home Depot. Chad said I posted a video of him doing it. Okay, so Chad, although this is inaccurate, let me just say this is inaccurate. The video that he posted. It's kind of funny. This is not how this played out. I went to Home Depot Friday night and did this myself, but this is Chad's interpretation of how it played out. This is inaccurate. This didn't happen. It's quite disrespectful to imagine that this is how this played out, but that's not how it went through. Do you have any leftover bricks? No, I used up all the bricks, dude. I bought as many as I needed, and that's how it played out. So there we go. What mortar did you use? Okay. I'm not privy to all these fancy terms that you guys mortar. What the heck is mortar? I just put the bricks on. Yeah, I don't know what mortar is. I'm Googling it right now, but whatever it is was not needed for the bricks, okay? I just used freaking my ambition, my hard work, my desire to be successful, and glue. That's all you really needed. It wasn't that complicated, even though, people are acting like it's that complicated. Anyway, having said that, let's get an update from the White House and see what else is going on with this Lisa Cook stuff.
Our Eamon Javers has more on that this morning. Morning, Eamon.
Yeah, good morning, guys. We will see the president on camera today in an unrelated event this afternoon. So we may hear from him directly on this court ruling that came down late on Friday. But his top trade advisor, Peter Navarro, said yesterday it'll be the end of the United States if President Trump's tariffs are blocked on appeal to the Supreme Court. Navarro called the ruling, quote, weaponized partisan injustice, but says he feels very optimistic about the administration's chances in the high court. His comments came after that federal appeals court ruling on Friday that most of the president's global tariffs are illegal, holding in a 7-4 ruling that the law the president invoked to put tariffs in place does not, in fact, give him the power to do so. The court said the core congressional power to impose taxes, such as tariffs, is vested exclusively in the legislative branch by the Constitution. The president denounced that ruling on social media over the weekend, writing, without tariffs and all of the trillions of dollars we have already taken in, our country would be completely destroyed and our military power would be instantly obliterated.
I do not think the District Court of Appeals is going to get rid of the tariffs. It looks like this is going to be another lawsuit for the Trump administration to have to navigate, but I don't think that's going to be that big of an issue. So it's a bigger headache for Trump to deal with this now that the court said that the tariffs are illegal. But this happened in June. The court said the tariffs were legal and they fought it back. So through hell or high water, they're going to be able to get these tariffs into place. Now, the next administration, if it's not a Republican administration, might get rid of them. But I don't think the validity of the tariffs is going to be that much in question, especially because of the Supreme Court, because I think they'll be able to play it out. Amit, did you finish the whole bottle of champagne by yourself yesterday? The first sign you may have a drinking problem. Okay, so I will admit to everybody, it wasn't champagne. I know a lot of people are probably upset that I lied to them, but if you know, like this, it was a little bit of a bit that I was doing on the channel. I couldn't even like get through drinking my cup that I poured, because dude, the amount of sugar that was in this shit. I mean, like, goodness gracious! Like, even when I was drinking the first 2 sips on stream, like, it's like I'm drinking sugar. It was disgusting, right? I threw it all away. I was like, I can't drink this. It was absolutely horrible. So Welch's, kids should not be drinking Welch's, bro. I feel like you're drinking diabetes. Like, it was just like pure sugar. I was like, what is this, bro? So it didn't get me tipsy, but it definitely made me want to just drink some water and like get that out of there. So yeah, it was sugar water with grape flavoring with a little bit of carbonation. So a little bit too much, but no, it was not alcohol. I think most of you guys pretty much recognize that. Fake alcohol, real bricks. Exactly. Dude, it really was disgusting. Even when I was drinking it on stream, like, it was just like, I don't drink that much sugar like that, bro. That's just way too much. I cannot easily drink that. Robinhood back above 100, Tesla 329, Nvidia 169. Again, things kind of flattening out right here. SoFi just below 25. Open Door, it was up 7. Now it's up 2. S&P down 1.2. If we end up down 1.2, 1.5 on the day, it is what it is. But some of those 932 lows we have not gotten back to. Now, maybe Trump's 2 p.m. announcement, when he takes questions, he says something that makes the markets upset about India or Russia or China or something. But as of now, silver is green, gold is green, S&P is down 1%, Palantir is green, Ethereum slightly green, and Bitcoin slightly green. And that is what we got. Robinhood's offering Klarna for IPO. Who's gonna bid for that? Yeah, there it is. 35 to 37. It's on Robinhood. KLAR is the ticker symbol. I got to read through the prospectus. I'm sure they're growing like crazy. The problem is, do you really want to own buy now, pay later in this market? I mean, technically, yeah, because a lot of people are using it, but is it the most exciting business model here? KLAR, that is the ticker symbol. KLAR for Klarna. I don't know what's going on with Zeta. Zeta's, I think it's just kind of selling off with a lot of the other growth names, but I don't see same thing with Serve Robotics. I don't see a headline on either of those. They didn't have earnings or anything. Yeah, no headlines. Looks like they're just down on technicals. But Klarna will be the new IPO. MicroStrategy is doing a bit better. That's up 3%. MSTR 3.5. Misty. Okay, so I know Meet Kevin made a video about Misty that's been going viral, and people have been calling it a scam. I do not think it's a scam. I think the problem with Misty, which is what we talked about 3 months ago when we were looking into yield max ETFs, if the underlying goes to the gutter, right? Like really, really falls off a cliff, whatever variation of the underlying also takes a hit as well. So I think Meet Kevin was kind of just like trying to be very hyperbolic and get headlines and stuff like that. But no, Misty is not a scam. They write covered calls and sell puts on an asset that has tanked over the past month by 35%. That's why Misty's in the gutter. If MicroStrategy was at 500, Misty would not be at 15. MicroStrategy is at 340. So Misty's at 15. Same thing with NVIDIA, NVDY. I mean, at the end of the day, this is why Steve said to not buy PLTY, which was the Palantir Yield Max Fund, because Palantir was at all-time highs. And if Palantir were to take any correction, the ETF would get hit bad, which is exactly what happened. So the key here is if you're a believer in these Yield Max funds, you DCA into them. So on Misty, you DCA into Misty, you collect more of a dividend, but you have to believe that MicroStrategy doesn't fully have the bottom fall out, aka fall below 300, because then Misty would just be absolutely destroyed. But I don't think it's a scam by any sense of the imagination. I just think that like the underlying got hit, and in a bear market or in a bearish market, if those underlying gets hit, a lot of the like NVDL, right? 2x leveraged NVIDIA. Is that a scam? No. But it's down 6% on a day that NVIDIA is down 3% because it's leveraged against NVIDIA, and NVIDIA fell since earnings. Therefore, NVDL fell harder since earnings, 20% versus NVIDIA's 10%. So extremely high risk. If you're buying it for the dividend, you probably don't even care about the NAV going down because eventually your argument, your assumption is that the dividends will yield more than the NAV. And for some of the OG peoples in these yield max funds, I mean, they are up well above their NAV erosion. But if you believe MicroStrategy comes back because Bitcoin comes back, then Misty is going to be fine. Now, if MicroStrategy, falls below 300, falls below 200 anytime soon, Misty could really take a big hit. But if that doesn't happen, then it'll be flat money versus anything exciting. So those are my thoughts on it. Sis says, I love my round held and yield max weekly, monthly paydays, just DCA dips. Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, when assets take a bit of a hit, the leveraged ETFs, which we know there's 4,300 ETFs versus 4,200 stocks. So there's a lot of market demand for this type of stuff. They're going to take a hit as well. But I think rushing to say that's a scam, like that just doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think it's a lot of trying to gather headlines than anything else. Because if MicroStrategy was at 500, me, Kevin, would not be saying Misty's a scam. But MicroStrategy's down. So, okay, so now Misty's a scam. Like that just logically, that doesn't add up, in my opinion. Picked up more GE Veranova. Is that one down on the day? That one is down about 6%. Recovered a little bit from 567 to 578, but it is still down about 5% right here. The wallpaper makes it looks like there's mortar, but you said you use glue. There would be no gaps with glue. Dude, Elmer's glue should not be denied as a force to be reckoned with when it comes to arts and crafts. So I don't know what this whole mortar thing is that you guys are talking about. Never heard of that shit, but I heard of Elmer's freaking glue. Get a 16-ounce pack for $42. So, I mean, that's just the nature of how I did what I did. Okay, what else do we got? Is that pretty much it? Do we have any other headlines? I think that's it. I don't see anything else too crazy. Markets down about 1%. We'll see how this turns out towards the end of the day. Yeah, I don't see anything too bad. Gold and silver are up. Eventually, we'll have to see what happens there. 2 p.m., Trump will be speaking. We'll have to see what happens there. And if that affects the markets at all. But I think the main headline of the day is gold, silver up, markets a little afraid of stagflation, S&P down 1%. And you got about 4 hours to see if any of this recovers. UNH still kind of green. Fubo's up a little bit. It's kind of weird that you have some high flyers that are green, even though the S&P is down. Like a MicroStrategy, like why is that green? Now, technically because Bitcoin's up, but still, should Bitcoin be green if the S&P is down? Maybe, maybe not. But that's kind of the market dynamics we're seeing today. Bitcoin at 111. BMNR, is that holding on to some of its green? 43.95. That's still up 1%, as Tom Lee did buy another 100,000 Ethereum last week. Ethereum right here, 43.35. And the overall S&P 636. That's down 1.3% on the day. NVIDIA, is that a new daily low? NVIDIA is, yes, at a new daily low. Okay, so NVIDIA hit a new daily low. S&P is close to a new daily low, but not low, 636.05. So you got about 50 cents for the S&P to go down to get a new daily low. And then we'll see if that continues to drop or if that gets some buyers to step in. But towards the end of the day, we'll have a better understanding of it. All right, cool. That's what we've got going on. MIT's pitching real bricks like CEOs pitching their real AI in 2024. Look, you guys can believe whatever you want to believe, but at the end of the day, my Elmer's glue doesn't lie. All right, word of the day. What do we got? First word of the day in the new studio. And again, I'll be working out some of the sound dynamics, audio dynamics. I know it's a little tough on the ears. Some of you guys said it's fine. Some of you guys say it's a little echoey. I just have to get some more rugs in the room and some soundproofing, but hopefully over the next couple of days, we'll figure out most of that stuff. Word of the day is, okay, I want to say that's panache, but it's sounding it out as panache. So I was going to say panache, but I'm going to say panache because I think that makes more sense. Let's see.
Panache.
Okay, there you go. Panache. A grand or flamboyant manner or style. The chef plated each dish with such panache that it felt like performance art. I feel like I've heard this word before. He ran the meeting with a kind of theatrical panache that kept everyone engaged. How do you not know some of these words? No, I didn't. I mean, I feel like I've heard this word before, but I could not tell you the definition if you asked me what panache meant. A grand or flamboyant manner or style. Okay, well, the S&P is panaching to the downside in a flamboyant way with some of this red. 636.36, 30 cents away from a new low of the day on the S&P. So let's see if that ends up playing out. But that's what you got. Word of the day. It is about to be lunchtime. We'll see if these algos kick in around 2 p.m. So we'll give it a couple hours and see how this plays out. Or maybe it's just going to be one of those red September days like it was last year. And see if we get some more red. Amit laid the bricks without mortar with such panache. Exactly. It's a very flamboyant way of doing it. Nick, thank you for being a channel member. Congrats on the new placement. Eventually, I'm hoping there will be more hymn stuff on that wall. Hopefully, hymns, we didn't even look at it today. This one has been getting hit. Hymns House did report this morning that hymns down 2%. The iOS app download activity is the lowest it's been in a couple months. So that is a little bit of bearishness in terms of the new user downloads and stuff like that. But overall, hymns below 10 billion, given their growth. I don't know if it is going to stay that low, but that one is getting a little bit of a hit. Falling Knife, thank you for the $200 super chat. Appreciate you for being here. Cheers to the new place in the hood dip. Load up, get in before banking rolls out. Got a feeling they will change retail banking experience. I do think the Robinhood banking experience in September is going to be exceptional. A lot of the employees already have had it rolled out, and Vlad's been saying that the employees internally have been loving that product. So hopefully that is a catalyst along with the active trader event. I think there's a lot of catalysts for Hood, even with this dip below 100. But thank you for the $200 super chat, Falling Knife. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being part of the channel as well. All right, folks, that's it. I'm out. I'll be back on the market close. Yeah, that's pretty much it. First official day as like an actual adult in my own apartment. So yeah, the cool thing is I'm about to go to the gym. The gym is down 5 floors, which is incredible. You don't have to get into your car. You don't have to drive anywhere. You can just like go downstairs, and it's a great gym. There's a basketball court. That's why I was flipping the basketball on my finger the other day. But yeah, I'll be back on the market close. We'll see what we got going on. There is a skyline view. I'm looking at it right now. And so we didn't do an apartment tour because I do want to keep some parts of the apartment private and have a little bit of a boundary between work and where I live. But it is pretty cool, dude. It's pretty cool to just kind of look out, and it's not the New York City skyline, but it's still I would say a good amount of sky. It's almost like 10, 15 skyscrapers across the board, and it's pretty dope. It's pretty dope. So exciting stuff. Thank you all for being here. We'll be back for the market close. Technical Tuesday. We'll be here today with Jason. We'll do a lot of different stocks outside of just the basic, ones that we do all the time, like Palantir, Nvidia, and Tesla. And yeah, should be fun, and we'll keep going from there. So, all right, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. I'll see you guys in a few hours on the market close. Hopefully, markets don't take that big of a hit, but if they do, maybe we get some dip opportunities going into September. All right, bye, everybody. See you guys in a bit.